Chapter 1784. Li Xiaotian had disappeared, he must have been melted by the magma. Tang Zheng's guts were about to burst. That was his lover, a woman who did not hesitate to sacrifice her life to save him. How could he remain calm? His killing intent surged, covering the sky and the earth. A gale suddenly blew up, rising from the ground and sweeping up the magma, trying to tear it into 4 or 5 pieces. Although Yi Meiyu had exploded on the spot and disappeared without a trace, Tang Zheng believed that she did not die, but had instead merged with the magma. The magma and the savage aura fused together and underwent an earth-shattering change. It was no longer a simple magma. Yi Meiyu was the magma, and the magma was Yi Meiyu. The blazing heat wave seemed to be Yi Meiyu's aura, causing people to feel nauseous. Yi Meiyu, go to hell. With a shocking roar, a gale carried the magma and soared into the sky, transforming into a pillar of fire that stretched across the sky. Cracking sounds came out from within. The gale was using its own power to tear the magma apart. Ha ha ha, Tang Zheng, how does it feel to live a life worse than death? Yi Meiyu's voice suddenly sounded out, extremely arrogant. Tang Zheng's pupils constricted. He had not guessed wrongly. Yi Meiyu had not died at all, but had merged with the magma. Now, her attack power would be even more terrifying. I will let you experience this feeling twice as much. When she dies, I think this feeling will be even more interesting. Yi Meiyu said. However, it was clear who he was referring to. Marshal. After she killed Li Xiaotian, she was still not satisfied and even aimed her spear at Wu. If something were to happen to Wu, it would definitely be a devastating blow to Tang Zheng. Yi Meiyu clearly understood this logic, which was why she was so crazy. How dare you? Tang Zheng roared, his figure flashed, and pounced towards Wu, preparing to protect her. Unfortunately, the heavens were unpredictable. The magma's speed was even faster, turning into a fire dragon. With a flash of fire, its bloody mouth had already bitten down on Wu. Wu had tried to resist, but she was no match for Yi Meiyu. When Tang Zheng saw the despair in Marshall's eyes, his heart felt as if it was being twisted by a knife. He was about to faint as he hysterically shouted, "Don't!" However, it was too late. With a flash of fire, Marshall disappeared into the mouth of the fire dragon. Ah! Tang Zheng abruptly stopped, as if someone had cast a spell on him. He floated in the air in a daze, and no sound came out of his wide-open mouth. Hee, Tang Zheng, if you kill yourself, then I will let you die a quick death. Otherwise, I will torture you to death. Yi Meiyu's voice sounded again, even more arrogant and despotic. She actually wanted Tang Zheng to kill himself. Tang Zheng gradually came back to his senses. His eyes were full of indifference, like a wasteland, without any signs of life. Just one look from him was enough to make people fall into an ice cave. Yi Meiyu, you killed 2 of my beloved women. If I don't kill you, how can I let their souls rest in peace? You brought all of this upon yourself. Do you think you can do whatever you want just because you boast that you have a savage aura? Tang Zheng muttered to himself as if he was possessed. There was not the slightest fluctuation in his tone, as if he was speaking to a dead person. Ha, Tang Zheng, what can you do to me? Yi Meiyu asked fearlessly. You don't know who you've offended. Your doomsday has already been decided. Tang Zheng's tone was calm, and did not even have the slightest hint of threat. However, when it came out of his mouth, an invisible killing intent spread outwards. Shwa! Above the 9 heavens, the stars flickered. The power of the stars descended from the sky, enveloping the entire 10,000 huge mountains. The land seemed to have turned into porridge in the middle of the night. Tang Zheng glanced at the magma fire dragon indifferently and said without batting an eyelid, "Explode." Yi Meiyu was about to retort with a few words of ridicule. Boom! With a loud sound, the power of the stars covered the entire area. The fire dragon had nowhere to run. Roar! Tang Zheng roared towards the sky, it was actually a dragon's roar. His entire body flashed with a golden light, and he had already transformed into a true dragon. The power of the stars in the sky landed on his body, causing the golden dragon scales to become even more dazzling. Whiz! The golden dragon that Tang Zheng had transformed into rushed towards the fire dragon. Countless amounts of star power converged towards the golden dragon, and every time Tang Zheng absorbed a bit of star power, the dragon scales would become even more dazzling. Not long after, the golden dragon seemed to have turned into a sun, illuminating the entire mountain range. It was almost impossible to look straight at it. Boom! 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 The golden dragon and the fire dragon continued to exchange blows. All sorts of lights danced in the air, like a dazzling fireworks show. However, the danger within was not something that ordinary people could imagine or bear. Bang! Suddenly, the tail of the fire dragon was swept by the golden dragon and broke into two halves. It turned into balls of magma and fell down. Unfortunately, before it could fall to the ground, a golden dragon tail swept across it. Sparks flew in all directions and the magma completely dissipated. The fire dragon only had half of its body left. It struggled on the verge of death, but how could it be a match for the golden dragon? After a few rounds, the fire dragon completely exploded, turning into rays of light that filled the sky and completely disappeared. With a flash of golden light, Tang Zheng returned to his human form, but before he could say anything, the scene in front of him changed drastically. Tang Zheng opened his eyes wide in shock. Suddenly, he remembered something from the past. Yi Meiyu's master was Nightmare, and she had the ability to instantly lure people into dreams. Tang Zheng had seen her heart's dream traceless technique before. He had never thought that he would be affected by this heart's dream traceless technique. After all, his cultivation was no longer what it used to be, and his ability to distinguish was no longer what it used to be. Now, he realized that he had overestimated himself and underestimated Yi Meiyu. After Yi Meiyu had fused with the savage aura, all sorts of divine abilities had undergone a qualitative change. In this world, he was not the only one who had improved, the others had not fallen behind in the slightest. It was precisely because of this mentality that he accidentally entered a dream. Everything that happened just now was just a dream. Li Xiaotian and Wu did not die at all. It was just a dream. When Tang Zheng opened his eyes again, sure enough, Li Xiaotian was still trapped in the ravine, and Wu was also safe and sound. However, both of them did not look too good. Tang Zheng was caught off guard and entered the dream. Their cultivations were far lower than Tang Zheng's, so they naturally did not escape this calamity. They had all experienced the dream once, and it was as if they had died once. The look in their eyes and aura had undergone an earth-shattering change. Yi Meiyu was not far away, but her situation was much worse. She was actually half kneeling on the ground, with a pool of blood in front of her and a trace of blood at the corner of her mouth. Tang Zheng had broken her heart's dream traceless technique, causing her to suffer a heavy backlash and almost lose half of her life. She looked at Tang Zheng in disbelief and muttered to herself as if she was possessed, "Impossible, how could you break my heart's dream traceless?" Tang Zheng did not waste any more words with her, his figure flashed, and he had already saved Li Xiaotian from the ravine. When Li Xiaotian was hugged by Tang Zheng, he revealed a relieved smile. Tang Zheng handed Li Xiaotian over to Wu, who quickly supported the weak Li Xiaotian, while Tang Zheng walked step by step towards Yi Meiyu. With every step he took, his killing intent grew stronger. When he arrived in front of Yi Meiyu, his killing intent was overflowing. Chapter 1785. Yi Meiyu retreated in panic. She still did not understand why she had lost so thoroughly, and found it hard to accept this cruel reality. Tang Zheng was filled with killing intent, he gritted his teeth. "Yi Meiyu, you have schemed and used cruel methods, I want to see what other tricks you have up your sleeves." "You? What do you want?" Yi Meiyu asked in panic. Tang Zheng laughed in ridicule. "Don't you think this question is unnecessary? You've been going against me at every turn, and you still expect me to let you go? You really want to kill me?" Yi Meiyu could not believe it. Tang Zheng shook his head and said, don't think that just because you're a woman, I won't kill you." With that said, a sword light flashed, and the hidden profound sword pierced through the air, directly piercing through her chest. She looked at her chest in disbelief. Blood flowed out along the sword's body, like a string of beads, falling down in a straight line. She could almost feel her life force rapidly leaving her body. Her legs gradually went weak, she could not stand steadily, and she fell backwards. Bang! She crashed heavily onto the ground. Her eyelids were heavy, and she could no longer open them. Yi Meiyu had died, and he only had himself to blame. Wu and Li Xiaotian were filled with lingering fear. If not for Tang Zheng being strong enough, they would have already been killed by Yi Meiyu. Back then, no one would have thought that the young miss of the Ye family would actually reach such a step and cause such a huge storm. "How are the two of you?" Tang Zheng's attention shifted to his beloved woman, and he looked at Wu and Li Xiaotian with concern. It was a world of difference from the previous decisive killing. Li Xiaotian smiled charmingly, "I won't die yet. It's just that a lot of savage aura has entered my body, causing me to suffer unspeakably." Savage aura. Tang Zheng's heart moved, he looked around, the valley was completely filled with the savage aura. Furthermore, the savage aura was currently ownerless, instinctively destroying everything it came into contact with. Boom! A wave of savage aura struck the rocks, causing rocks to fly everywhere, the mountains to shake, and everything to become a mess. "Hurry up and leave this place." Umo was shocked, he protected Wu and Li Xiaotian and was about to fly into the sky, when suddenly, his pupils constricted as he saw an inconceivable scene. What kind of person was Tang Zheng? Anything that could make him feel incredulous was definitely no small matter. Wu and Li Xiaotian also looked over and exclaimed, "How could this be?" The wild aura between heaven and earth surged crazily towards Yi Meiyu's body from all directions, forming a tornado. She slowly rose into the air and was at the center of the storm. Countless wild auras entered her body, and her aura also underwent a tremendous change. "Tang Zheng, do you feel that there's a bit of life in her body?" Wu's eyes turned cold as he asked suspiciously. It was extremely abnormal for a person who was supposed to be dead to suddenly be alive again. Tang Zheng also noticed this, his expression suddenly changed. Without saying a word, he impatiently rushed out, merged with the mysterious sword, and slashed towards Yi Meiyu. Boom! The tornado formed by the savage qi was like an indestructible barrier, forcing Tang Zheng to retreat. Under the attack of the mysterious sword, it was actually unable to break through. This is bad. The veins on Tang Zheng's forehead popped out as they twitched non-stop. So, he waved his mysterious sword again, trying to break through the tornado. The tornado trembled non-stop, but it was still as strong as before. Tang Zheng was burning with anxiety. Just as he was about to activate the heavenly chess, a burst of wild laughter came out from the tornado. "Yi Meiyu." Tang Zheng's pupils constricted as he cried out involuntarily. The tornado gradually disappeared, and Yi Meiyu was actually floating in the air. She was alive again, her long hair fluttering in the wind as she stared at Tang Zheng and the other two with killing intent. "Ha ha ha, I really didn't expect that the savage qi would have such an effect. As long as I have the savage qi, I will never die. You will never be able to truly kill me." Resurrection from the dead. This was the worst thing that could happen. Tang Zheng was under a lot of pressure. Hearing Yi Meiyu's arrogant voice, he took a deep breath, suppressed his complicated emotions, and said, "Yi Meiyu, if I can kill you once, I can kill you a second time. But I will still be resurrected. What can you do?" Yi Meiyu said indifferently. Previously, she did not know that she possessed such a sacred art. Now that she had died once, she understood everything. As long as there was the savage qi, she would have an undying body. Tang Zheng subconsciously thought of the inner demons. Back then, he also had an undying body, and whoever killed him, he could take over the other party's body and revive from the dead. But in the end, he still died. Umo did not believe that Yi Meiyu would not die. Moreover, even if he could not kill her, he could still suppress her. It was just like how the Emperor and Qiyu joined hands and used the bronze coffin to seal the inner demons. Bronze coffin. Tang Zheng's heart moved. He remembered this item. Wasn't it kept in his Sumer world? He had never found a use for the bronze coffin and had almost forgotten about it. He never thought that Yi Meiyu would make him think of it again. That's right, the bronze coffin can even seal and suppress the inner demons. I don't believe that it can't deal with Yi Meiyu. When Tang Zheng thought about it, he heaved a sigh of relief, and deliberately provoked Yi Meiyu. You are too arrogant, watch me kill you a second time. Whiz. Tang Zheng flew towards Yi Meiyu, but this time, he did not use the hidden profound sword, and was barehanded. Yi Meiyu scoffed, and did not put him in her eyes at all. He couldn't even kill her with the hidden profound sword, so what could he do with his bare hands? Wu and Li Xiaotian stared at him without blinking. Their hearts were in their throats, but they were powerless to help him. Only now did they realize how terrifying the savage aura was. It could actually bring people back to life. This was a realm that many people dreamed of, but Yi Meiyu had actually done it. If he really couldn't control her, then she would stir up trouble and cause a lot of trouble. The world would probably fall into chaos again. Tang Zheng was also very clear on this point, so he was extremely careful. There was only one chance, and if he missed it, it would be too late to regret it. He saw the madness and disdain in Yi Meiyu's eyes. This was the effect he wanted. The two of them were within reach. Seeing that Tang Zheng had not attacked yet, Yi Meiyu took the initiative to move. She grabbed forward with her big hand, and a tornado formed from the savage aura turned into a long whip, fiercely swinging it over. Now's the time. Tang Zheng acted according to the situation. Sumeru world flashed, and a huge object flew out. Bronze coffin. Yi Meiyu did not understand its meaning, and naturally did not understand Tang Zheng's intentions, so she simply disdained it. Yi Meiyu's vision darkened, as if a dark cloud was pressing down on her. Yi Meiyu curled her lips in disdain. Insignificant skill. The tornado struck the bronze coffin, but it did not move at all. The tornado could not do anything to it at all. Instead, the bronze coffin released a black light, and the tornado was sucked into the bronze coffin, disappearing without a trace. Seeing that, Yi Meiyu's pupils constricted and her expression changed. Chapter 1786. The power of the bronze coffin was terrifying, causing Yi Meiyu to be extremely shocked. She stared at Tang Zheng with a burning gaze and asked, "What the hell is this thing?" Tang Zheng was reassured, and said, "It's a treasure specially made to deal with you. In your dreams." Yi Meiyu snorted angrily. With a shake of her body, she disappeared without a trace, and turned into a surging savage aura. Like an angry dragon, she attacked Tang Zheng. Keep! Tang Zheng used his sacred art, and the bronze coffin fell from the sky like a huge mountain pressing down. Boom! The savage aura clashed with the bronze coffin, and a loud sound resounded throughout the world. Tang Zheng's eyes flickered, but he quickly calmed himself down. He had to admit, Yi Meiyu's attack was indeed terrifying. He clenched his teeth and continuously channeled his power. The bronze coffin started to glow with a black luster. Whoosh! When the savage aura rushed over again, the black luster quickly trapped the savage aura. The savage aura was no longer able to leave, and was slowly absorbed into the bronze coffin. Yi Meiyu's figure gradually appeared again, but she was no longer able to break free from the bronze coffin. Half of her body had already been sucked into the bronze coffin. "Let me go!" Yi Meiyu screamed hysterically. Unfortunately, Yi Meiyu did not succeed. Instead, she slowly sank into the bronze coffin. Yi Meiyu struggled non-stop, shaking her head. She did not expect that all of this would be in vain. She sank deeper and deeper, leaving only her head behind. She glared fiercely at Tang Zheng and shouted crazily, "Tang Zheng, you can't kill me, what can you do to me?" Tang Zheng heaved a sigh of relief and laughed, "If I can't kill you, I can trap you. 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 100,000 years. You will spend your life in this bronze coffin. I believe that this kind of loneliness will be very wonderful. No. Yi Meiyu cried out in fear. She didn't want to be imprisoned. She wanted thousands of people to submit to her. She didn't want to be a lonely prisoner. That's not up to you. As soon as Tang Zheng finished speaking, Yi Meiyu's head was sucked into the bronze coffin, leaving only her hysterical voice echoing in the air. The bronze coffin slowly closed its lid and landed in the canyon. Tang Zheng and the other two stood quietly outside the bronze coffin, feeling deeply moved. Yi Meiyu, you brought this upon yourself. Tang Zheng said. Tang Zheng, quickly let me out. Hurry up. Yi Meiyu's voice came out from the coffin, but it was no longer sharp and ear-piercing. It was extremely weak. Release you to kill me? Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily. If you don't let me go, when I leave this damned place, I will also kill you. Furthermore, you will die a miserable death. Yi Meiyu threatened. Then let's talk about it after you come out. Tang Zheng shrugged his shoulders indifferently. The bronze coffin could even suppress the inner demons, so it was more than enough to deal with Yi Meiyu. She really won't come out again. Li Xiaotian still had a lingering fear in his heart as he asked worriedly. Tang Zheng laughed, and said, Don't worry, she definitely won't be able to come out. Let's go, let's leave this place and let her stay here forever. Tang Zheng brought Li Xiaotian and Wu soared into the air and left the canyon. Tang Zheng turned his head to look at the canyon, his heart moved, and he bellowed, Move the mountain. A black hole appeared from the center of his palm. Rumble, rumble, rumble. A mountain peak rose into the air and flew straight to the side of the canyon. Bang! The mountain peak fell heavily, the canyon was crushed, and the rock sank down, turning into ruins. The mountain peak sat on top of the ruins. The bronze coffin was located deep underground, and there was a mountain peak on top of it. Even if Yi Meiyu had wings, it would be difficult for her to escape. Li Xiaotian and Wu stared at the scene with wide eyes, looking at Tang Zheng with eyes full of worship. She won't be able to escape this time, right? Marshall asked. Tang Zheng smiled and nodded, of course. Li Xiaotian and Wu patted their chests and laughed as if relieved of a heavy burden. Suddenly, Li Xiaotian closed his eyes and fell down weakly. She had suffered quite a bit of torture and was already exhausted. If not for her strong willpower, she would have collapsed long ago. Li Xiaotian. Tang Zheng and Wu cried out in alarm at the same time. Tang Zheng anxiously hugged her, and with a leap, the somersault cloud rose into the air, carrying the three of them out of the 10,000 huge mountains. The next day, Li Xiaotian was already full of energy. Tang Zheng had already helped her get rid of the savage aura, and her body had completely recovered. The two of them strolled in the garden hand in hand. Southern Yunnan was originally located in the subtropics, and the climate was pleasant. It was like spring all year round, and there were flourishing flowers all year round. Li Xiaotian no longer had the viciousness of the past, and only endless sweetness and happiness remained on his face. No one disturbed their world, and even Wu went to deal with the daily affairs of southern Yunnan. After all, almost all the warriors in the country were gathered in southern Yunnan, and all sorts of complicated matters were a test of Wu's ability. A while ago, everyone was in a state of panic. Now that the storm had finally calmed down, she naturally had to deal with the aftermath. Because Li Xiaotian was injured, he could relax a little and enjoy the two of them alone with Tang Zheng. However, the content of the conversation between the two of them was filled with bloodshed. Tang Zheng was telling her about the matters of the Dragon Realm, and Li Xiaotian was fascinated by it. One day, I also want to accompany you by your side and fight against strong enemies with you. Li Xiaotian said infatuatedly. Tang Zheng held her waist, his arms slightly exerted force, and said with certainty, You will definitely have this opportunity, and it will be in the near future. Right now, your top priority is to cultivate. Li Xiaotian understood and nodded. I understand, I am different from ordinary warriors and cultivators. My Xitigarbha Sutra has already made a new appearance, and I am planning to go to the Ghost Realm to ask the Dizang of Goguryeo for guidance. Tang Zheng smiled and said, "You can wander freely in the ghost realm, so of course you can't miss such a good opportunity. It just so happens that I haven't seen the Dizang of Goguryeo for a long time, and I am also preparing to meet him." Tang Zheng always remembered Yan Qingyi's doomsday prophecy. Yan Qingyi was related to the heavenly Tao, and all of this was probably not a frightening lie. As for when the doomsday would happen, he did not know. But there was one thing, he also comprehended the heavenly book, and comprehended the heavenly Tao. Could he make a fuss about it and find clues about the doomsday? The ghost realm and the human realm were mother and child worlds, and they complemented each other. If the human realm was destroyed, it would not be good for the ghost realm. Therefore, as the lord of the human realm, he naturally wanted to discuss this issue with the lord of the ghost realm. "There is no time like the present, let's go," Li Xiaotian said excitedly. She could go on an adventure alone with Tang Zheng again, and this was a huge stimulation and temptation to her. Tang Zheng smiled knowingly, and with a wave of his hand, he did not need the ghost messenger token, and he had already broken the space restriction between the human realm and the ghost realm, and established a stable space door. Chapter 1787. The sky of the ghost realm was still gray, but a huge vortex appeared in the sky, covering thousands of miles. This huge ghost realm was almost completely covered by the vortex. Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian looked at this strange scene in shock because they had never seen such a situation before. The two looked at each other and already understood that an accident had happened in the ghost realm, and it was a bad accident. There was no doubt about this because the ghosts of the ghost realm flew into the sky one by one and were sucked into the huge vortex, disappearing without a trace. When a certain number of ghosts were sucked in, the vortex would increase in size. This was a vicious cycle. The bigger the vortex, the more ghosts it could absorb. "Come, let's go to the center and take a look." Tang Zheng waved his hand and a ball of light covered Li Xiaotian. This was a protective shield to prevent Li Xiaotian from being hurt again. She had walked through the gates of hell and Tang Zheng did not want her to go through this kind of torture again. Whoosh! The somersault cloud carried the two of them and rode on the clouds. Like light and lightning, they crossed thousands of miles of space and distance. The two of them finally arrived at the bottom of the vortex. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. One by one, the ghosts were like hydrogen balloons rising into the air, quickly disappearing into the vortex. The screams resounded through the world, the wails of ghosts and howls of wolves. It was creepy, but it was mixed with a strong sense of pain. "What the hell is going on?" Li Xiaotian asked with a pale face. She had been to the ghost realm several times, but she had never seen such a situation. For the ghost realm, this was simply a disaster. Tang Zheng shook his head. He did not know what was going on, but his mind was clear and he said, "Let's find the Dizang of Goguryeo first, then we can figure out what is going on. I believe that he is safe and sound." "Then where do we find him?" Li Xiaotian asked blankly. Tang Zheng looked around. Suddenly, his pupils shrank as he found something unusual. Under the huge vortex, there were ghosts constantly rising into the air. However, there was a place where there were no ghosts in the air. It seemed to be a pure land of bliss. There had to be someone resisting for such an effect to occur. In the ghost realm, only the Dizang of Goguryeo had such strength. "Let's go over there." Tang Zheng pointed with his finger. Li Xiaotian was also a smart person and immediately understood Tang Zheng's thoughts. He said, "Dizang of Goguryeo must be there." When the two of them flew to that area, they looked down and actually saw a huge swastika symbol on the ground, glowing with a dazzling golden light. It was precisely this symbol and the golden light that protected the ghosts below from the tragic fate of being sucked away. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva sat in the middle of a huge execution field, chanting sutras. There were many people sitting around him. Other than the kings of hell, there were also ghost marshals and ghost operatives. All in all, it was a gathering of countless forces. There was one thing that surprised Tang Zheng because he did not see all the kings of hell. Could it be that some of the kings of hell had sacrificed themselves? He guessed right. The ghost realm had suffered great losses, and even the kings of hell had fallen. It was obvious how much damage they had suffered. Let's go down and help. Tang Zheng landed the somersault cloud. The suction force in the sky could not penetrate the golden light of the swastika, but the somersault cloud shuttled freely through the swastika and landed beside Dizang of Goguryeo. All eyes were on the two of them. Most of them were too familiar with these two faces and would never forget them for the rest of their lives. Many of them knew how powerful Tang Zheng was, and they could not help but feel hopeful. Dizang of Goguryeo was calm and composed as he chanted the Kitagarbha Sutra. He glanced at Tang Zheng from the corner of his eye and did not say a word. However, his expression and actions had already explained everything. He obviously welcomed Tang Zheng's arrival. This was a powerful external aid. Dizang of Goguryeo, what's going on? Tang Zheng asked. Dizang of Goguryeo clasped his hands together and said calmly, an external enemy has invaded the ghost realm and is devouring the entire ghost realm. What? Tang Zheng was shocked. This meant that it was an external enemy. The ghost realm had always been safe and sound. How could there be an external enemy all of a sudden? He raised his head and stared at the sky. The huge vortex was like a bloody mouth. With a thought, he sensed the huge vortex from a distance. He was well versed in the law of space. He really sensed that this vortex was connected to other spaces. This vortex was actually a spatial door. It really is an external invasion. Tang Zheng furrowed his brows. Dizang of Goguryeo lamented, the ghost realm has such a calamity. I'm afraid I'm not a match for this strong enemy by myself. Even Dizang of Goguryeo was ashamed of his inferiority. He had to admit that the enemy's strength was beyond imagination. Tang Zheng's eyelids twitched a few times and asked, is the enemy really so powerful? Have you seen the enemy's real body? Dizang of Goguryeo shook his head and said, this spatial door appeared without warning in the sky above the ghost realm. It has been there for some time. We struggled to resist it, but we still couldn't resist it. But from the beginning to the end, the enemy didn't show his real body. Tang Zheng was shocked. From this point, it was enough to show that the enemy was really powerful. He could launch such a powerful attack without showing his real body. Dizang of Goguryeo looked at Tang Zheng with a complicated expression and asked tentatively, your cultivation. Suddenly, Dizang of Goguryeo paused. He looked excited and said in disbelief, have you really broken through that threshold? Reached that mysterious realm? Tang Zheng understood what he meant and nodded, yes, I am already in the Saint Realm. The Saint Realm. So that realm is called the Saint Realm. Dizang of Goguryeo suddenly understood and his heart swayed. This was the realm he had been searching for, but he had never found it. He never thought that he could see others reach this realm, which meant that his feeling was right. This realm really did exist in this world. He wanted to get to the bottom of it and find out what kind of realm the Saint Realm was, but the current environment did not allow him to do so. Tang Zheng was also well aware of this point, so he directly said, I will lend you a hand. Dizang of Goguryeo looked excited. He naturally wanted to see how powerful the Saint Realm cultivation was. Whoosh! Tang Zheng soared into the sky and rushed directly to the huge vortex. The terrible suction force enveloped him in an instant and pulled him into the vortex. Tang Zheng smiled faintly. He had comprehended the law of space. How could this little bit of suction force deal with him? He was safe and sound, like an aircraft carrier in the middle of a storm, unmoved. Since you're using the law of space, I'd like to see which world you are from, Tang Zheng said faintly. Boom! A wave of qi rippled out, creating a circle of ripples that spread out in all directions. Many ghosts in the air instantly found that they had regained their freedom. The terrible suction force had disappeared. There was no doubt that all of this was due to Tang Zheng's contribution. He had achieved such a great effect in one move. They were all very excited. Run! Tang Zheng shouted. The ghosts seemed to wake up from a dream and fled in all directions. The vortex in the sky seemed to have noticed something strange and quietly changed. Chapter 1788. The ghosts escaped death and left the area covered by the vortex. Tang Zheng stood proudly in the air, staring at the huge vortex. The vortex quietly changed, and a face appeared in the sky. Although it was very blurry, Tang Zheng could still see it clearly, and his pupils couldn't help but shrink. "It's you!" Tang Zheng cried out in surprise, looking at the huge figure in disbelief. "Who is it?" Dizang of Goguryeo asked curiously. The others also stretched their necks, looking at Tang Zheng curiously. Everyone spent so much time, but still couldn't find out who the other party was. Tang Zheng had just arrived, but he found a clue. Could this be the extraordinary part of the Saint Realm? Tang Zheng muttered to himself, "King Wuling." "Who is King Wuling?" Dizang of Goguryeo asked curiously. "An enemy of the heavens beyond heaven." Tang Zheng's brain raced. King Wuling was Hao Tianwang's son, a powerhouse of the heavens beyond heaven. How could he appear in the sky of the ghost realm? Could it be that King Wuling was on the other side of the spatial door? What was he trying to do? Dizang of Goguryeo didn't know King Wuling, but he realized that the other party was very powerful. He hurriedly said, "Tang Zheng, you must make King Wuling stop as soon as possible." Tang Zheng nodded heavily and said, "I understand." Whoosh! Moving on its own accord, a wave of air surged up, revealing a sky-shaking wave, surging and surging towards the huge vortex. Pooh! A crack was torn in the vortex, and the spatial door was no longer stable, trembling violently. The other ghosts immediately felt their bodies relax, and the suction force that shrouded them completely disappeared. The vortex gradually converged, showing signs of returning to its original state. "Rising from the ashes, do you really think I'm a pushover? How could you possibly surpass me in terms of comprehension of the laws of space?" With a few popping sounds, the cracks gradually widened and showed signs of expanding. Like a spider web, they gradually covered the entire vortex. King Wuling's figure rippled and became blurry. This was not the real King Wuling, but King Wuling casting a spell. It must be some kind of secret spell, and then his figure was imprinted in the sky of the ghost realm. "King Wuling, you've already revealed yourself. You've done so much, and now you want to just leave." Tang Zheng instantly used the sky-swallowing technique. The sky suddenly changed color, and the shattered vortexes were actually attracted by the sky-swallowing technique's black hole. Whoosh! The vortex couldn't escape the black hole at all. In an instant, most of the vortices disappeared into the black hole. King Wuling's figure became clear again. That was because he had been locked in by the sky-swallowing technique. Although they were in two different worlds, King Wuling still couldn't escape from the sky-swallowing technique. Tang Zheng was like a clear mirror, and naturally knew that he had locked in on King Wuling. How could he let him leave? With a thought, his power increased greatly. Boom! A crack appeared in the sky, crossing the sky. Even though the sky was very dim, the crack was very clear. It was shocking, and it was terrifying. "King Wuling, come here!" Tang Zheng roared, and half a body appeared in the crack. If it wasn't King Wuling, who else could it be? King Wuling widened his eyes and looked at the scene in disbelief. His real body was in the heavens beyond heaven, and he thought that he was absolutely safe. He never expected that when he carried out the task assigned by his father, he would encounter such a strong resistance. After the big battle, Hao Tianwang realized that his strength was not enough. If he wanted to crush his opponent, he had to find another way. He thought hard and finally set his eyes on the world of spirits and souls. It was not a secret that the world of spirits and souls was a mother-child world. If Hao Tianwang absorbed the energy of the world of spirits and souls, the fate of the human world would be damaged. Once the fate of the human world was weakened, Hao Tianwang's chances of winning would be higher. The world of spirits and souls was the breakthrough. Hao Tianwang sent his son to carry out the task while he cultivated in seclusion to prepare for the final battle. King Wuling's power had improved by leaps and bounds under Hao Tianwang's guidance. He had reached the 9th stage of the Mahayana realm, which was only a step away from the Saint realm. He was on par with Dizang of Goguryeo. However, King Wuling had the sacred magic weapon given by Hao Tianwang. Against the world of spirits and souls, he had an overwhelming advantage. Dizang of Goguryeo did not expect that when victory was in his hands, someone would ruin his good deed. He heard the familiar roar and was shocked. He roared in disbelief, "Tang Zheng, it's you." This roar resounded throughout the ghost realm. Tang Zheng's name resounded like thunder, and there was no one in the ghost realm who did not know of him. Seeing that the enemy actually knew of him, everyone felt that Tang Zheng's abilities were vast and unfathomable. "So you know each other?" Dizang of Goguryeo suddenly realized. Tang Zheng said, "Not only do we know each other, but we are also old enemies." Dizang of Goguryeo's pupils shrank and said, "What do we do now?" "Watch as I capture him." Tang Zheng roared as his figure flashed, shooting straight up into the air towards the gigantic vortex. Half of King Wuling's body was stuck in the vortex. His body was much taller than before and looked terrifying. Sky-swallowing technique. Whoosh! The black hole shrouded the top of King Wuling's head. The huge suction force tore him up and resisted the terrifying power of space. "Ah!" King Wuling screamed in horror and looked at Tang Zheng in disbelief. He roared, "How did you become so powerful?" Since Hao Tianwang gave him pointers, his power had greatly increased. His confidence in himself had multiplied and he thought that Tang Zheng was no match for him. But at this moment, the strength that Tang Zheng showed made him feel a deep fear. "No, this can't be true." He roared hysterically, unwilling to believe this cruel reality. Tang Zheng snorted and said, "King Wuling, you didn't linger in the outland but came to the ghost realm to die. Then I'll fulfill your wish." Puff! The black hole increased its strength and King Wuling was sucked straight from the outland. His figure flashed and he was already standing in the sky above the ghost realm. Tang Zheng casually waved his hand, and with a kacha sound, like a bolt of lightning flashing across the sky, the huge spatial vortex shattered into pieces and disappeared into thin air. King Wuling turned his head and looked in despair. He was not like Tang Zheng who could open and close the space door at will. He did not have that ability. He was able to open the space door between the outland and the ghost realm with the help of Hao Tianwang's ability. King Wuling grimaced and looked disgusting. He looked around and found that several kings of hell and the Dizang of Goguryeo had already leaped into the air and surrounded him. There were all kinds of ghost messengers and ghost generals outside, layer upon layer, surrounding him. Pairs of red eyes stared at him, as if they wanted to eat him alive. The ghost realm had suffered such a great disaster, so they naturally would not let go of the culprit. They had long hated him to the core. King Wuling knew that this matter could not be settled peacefully. The enemy was coming aggressively, and with his own strength, he was afraid that it would be a bloody battle. He took a deep breath and activated a new treasure. His eyes burst open and he roared, "You're not qualified to kill me." Whoosh! Chapter 1789. King Wuling's magical weapon was powerful, and the world was completely shrouded in the killing intent of the magical weapon. "Ah!" Screams came one after another, and the ghost messengers and ghost generals were all affected, screaming as they retreated. Dizang of Goguryeo chanted the name of Buddha, and with a palm strike, a golden handprint fell from the sky. He chanted, and Sanskrit gathered around the handprint, constantly circling and dancing. 10,000 Buddhas. These 4 words jumped out from Dizang of Goguryeo's mouth, and the world turned into a golden color. Boom! The handprint hit the colorful magical weapon, and with a rumble, cracks appeared on the magical weapon, and with a flash of light, the handprint also fell apart. King Wuling looked at this scene in disbelief. That was the magical weapon passed down to him by his father, and it was very powerful, but it was damaged just like that. He didn't see that Dizang of Goguryeo had such powerful strength before, and was completely suppressed and beaten up by him. "What's going on?" King Wuling shouted hysterically. "Ba, before I was distracted to save others, and naturally couldn't fight with you wholeheartedly. Now, I have no worries, and it's time to seek justice for the ghost realm." Whoosh! Dizang of Goguryeo soared into the sky, and his whole body bloomed with golden light. Especially his eyes, which were wide open, no longer looked kind, but had turned into an angry Vajra. Kitagarbha Bodhisattva mumbled something under his breath. Lines of Sanskrit flew out from his mouth, and the sound of a resounding bell rang out between heaven and earth, shaking the hearts of those who heard it. The other living beings of the ghost realm knelt on the ground devoutly, and looked at Dizang of Goguryeo with blazing eyes. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank, and he also stared at Dizang of Goguryeo, and sighed in his heart. Dizang of Goguryeo was really powerful, and the power of the 10,000 Buddhas was beyond doubt, and even King Wuling's magical weapon could break it. Instead, he became idle and watched this scene with interest. King Wuling was not reconciled, and roared, "Go to hell." Whoosh! A brilliant light shot out from the damaged magical weapon, piercing the sky, and went straight to Dizang of Goguryeo. Dizang of Goguryeo chanted the name of Buddha, and used the 10,000 Buddhas again. Boom! The explosion of light was incomparably dazzling, turning the dim world of spirits and souls into a myriad of colors, making it difficult for people to open their eyes. Dizang of Goguryeo narrowed his eyes slightly. Suddenly, he felt a chill in his heart, and a sense of crisis arose. He quickly dodged to the left, but he was still a step too late. Bang! A ray of light hit his chest, and as if he was hit by a great force, his chest quickly caved in, and he flew backward. The light dissipated, and the others happened to see this scene. Dizang of Goguryeo, suddenly, cries of alarm rose one after another, and it was very moving. Tang Zheng thought to himself, "Cunning, the martial spirit king made a feint, and actually caused the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva to suffer." Tang Zheng's figure flashed, and he had already caught Dizang of Goguryeo, and asked, "How are you?" Dizang of Goguryeo weakly shook his head, looked down at his sunken chest, and said with difficulty, "I'm fine." "You heal first, I'll deal with him." Tang Zheng put down Dizang of Goguryeo, and rose into the air. His eyes were like torches, firmly locked onto King Wuling. King Wuling guiltily avoided his gaze, and said in a threatening manner, "Tang Zheng, do you also want to die?" "Humph." Tang Zheng coldly snorted, and said, "Let's see if you die or I die." King Wuling guiltily retreated. He already understood that Tang Zheng was not the same as before, and he was no match for him at all, not to mention that his magical weapon was destroyed. Just now, the second move, 10,000 Buddhas, had already destroyed his magical weapon. Now, he didn't even have his most powerful magical weapon, so how could he be Tang Zheng's match? King Wuling was very self-aware, so he decided to temporarily avoid the brunt of the attack, and tried to escape. Tang Zheng saw through his intentions at a glance, and said with a sneer, "You want to leave after injuring someone? You're dreaming. Stay for me." Whoosh! He stretched out his hand, and a black hole suddenly appeared out of thin air, and a huge suction force instantly enveloped King Wuling. King Wuling's complexion changed greatly, and said, "You want to trap me just like that? Break for me." King Wuling's body straightened, and surging waves of energy endlessly spread out, and with a rumbling sound, the sky seemed to be torn apart. However, the black hole was still firm and stable, and King Wuling had no way to break through the shackles of the sky-swallowing technique. "Now you know what it means to be an ant trying to shake a tree, right?" Tang Zheng asked jokingly. King Wuling's complexion tightened, and he gritted his teeth, using all his skills. Poof! A mouthful of blood was spat out, and King Wuling's aura changed greatly, and he became dispirited. "Come here!" Tang Zheng roared, and King Wuling quickly moved closer to Tang Zheng. He kept struggling, but it was all in vain. Seeing this scene, all the living beings in the world of spirits and souls rejoiced, and they all cheered for Tang Zheng. King Wuling was bleeding from his 7 orifices, but he still couldn't stop himself from moving closer to Tang Zheng. He knew that he had no chance to escape. However, he wouldn't allow himself to become a captive. He grimaced, and his eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. "Tang Zheng, if I die, my father will avenge me. He will definitely kill you, and all of you, you're all dead." The luck of the outland is soaring, and the world of spirits and souls will be destroyed. A strange look flashed through Tang Zheng's eyes. King Wuling was determined to die, and he knew that things were not going well. His figure flashed, and he rushed toward King Wuling. No! Tang Zheng only had time to shout and try to stop him, but it was too late. Boom! King Wuling exploded in the air, and he turned into light and dissipated. He was dead. Tang Zheng froze in mid-air, sighed, and looked at the dissipating light. King Wuling knew too many secrets. If he could capture him alive, he would definitely be able to learn a lot about how Tianwang. However, he still remembered what King Wuling said at the last moment, about the luck of the outland and the survival of the world of spirits and souls. His heart skipped a beat, and he seemed to have guessed something. The others did not think of so many questions. They only saw that King Wuling was dead, and immediately, the tide of cheers was deafening. Pairs of eyes looked at Umo with gratitude and excitement. This strong enemy was finally dead, and the world of spirits and souls was safe. Dizang of Goguryeo had finished healing, but his mood was not as high as the others. He looked at Tang Zheng anxiously. Their eyes met, and they seemed to have understood each other's meaning through their eyes. Boom! Before the two of them could say a word, there was an earth-shattering turbulence in the world of spirits and souls. Heaven and earth shook, and the ground cracked. This, Tang Zheng and Dizang of Goguryeo's hearts skipped a beat. Did King Wuling's words come true? The people of the world of spirits and souls immediately fell silent and looked at the scene in a daze. They were at a loss, and many of them shouted in panic, "What's going on? Is the sky going to fall, and the earth going to collapse? Ah, what happened in the world of spirits and souls?" Chapter 1790. Tang Zheng and Dizang of Goguryeo looked at each other and had already figured out some clues. This must be the aftermath of what King Wuling had done before. Tang Zheng secretly used the law of space to understand more clearly and said seriously, "The energy of the ghost realm has been absorbed by King Wuling too much, which caused the energy of the ghost realm to be unstable and the sky to collapse." Dizang of Goguryeo nodded and said, "That's right, but do we have a way to temporarily stabilize the ghost realm?" Dizang of Goguryeo was not completely sure, so he could only ask Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng thought for a while and nodded, "If we work together, we should be able to do this." "Then what are we waiting for?" Dizang of Goguryeo could not wait. The others stared with their eyes wide open, still in shock. If the energy of the ghost realm was unstable, then this world may be destroyed. After all, the ghost realm was no longer a big world, but a small world. Come on. Tang Zheng used the law of space and released his power. Dizang of Goguryeo did the same, the two of them rose into the air at the same time and finally suspended above the sky. The sky was fragmented, like a broken glass bottle, covered with cracks like a spider web. Whoosh whoosh. Two rays of light rushed out from Tang Zheng and Dizang of Goguryeo's body and rushed into the sky. Boom boom. Two thunderous sounds, the sky shook violently, the law of space was spreading in all directions, stabilizing the sky little by little. The law of space was like glue, gluing the cracks little by little, so that they would not continue to expand. The others' eyes were about to pop out, looking at this strange scene, their emotions were surging and they could not calm down. Tang Zheng and Dizang of Goguryeo seemed to have a tacit understanding and turned around. Whoosh whoosh, the two rays of light rushed straight to the ground. Amidst the rumbling, the earth stopped cracking, and the bottomless ravine stabilized. Dizang of Goguryeo's body swayed. He was only at the 9th stage of the Mahayana realm, and using the spatial law consumed the most energy. "You should rest. I'll finish the rest of the work." The two of them had already completed the most difficult part, but the finishing work was not an easy task. Dizang of Goguryeo took a deep look at him. "Is this the cultivation of the Saint Plane?" After experiencing that fierce battle, he still had the energy to do so many things. He really wasn't someone that a 9th stage Mahayana stage cultivator could compare to. He couldn't help but yearn for it. If he could reach the Saint Realm, what a wonderful experience it would be. That was the true ultimate pursuit of a Shyoja, and not the 9 grades of Mahayana. Tang Zheng had no distractions. His entire body erupted with resplendent light. Like a scorching sun, he soared into the sky and actually blended into the spiderweb-like sky. The light was so dazzling that no one could look directly at it. Those spiderwebs gradually healed. When the light suddenly disappeared, all the cracks completely disappeared without a trace. Everyone stared at this scene in a daze, especially the person who was like a god. Powerful. Everyone only had this thought in their hearts. Their emotions fluctuated, and there was no way to completely describe their feelings. Tang Zheng slowly floated down, like a god descending to the earth. Even Dizang of Goguryu's mind was shaken. Is this a god? Tang Zheng ignored everyone's agitated mood. He looked down at the cracked earth and sighed helplessly. He could only heal the sky to its limit. He had no ability to heal the earth at all. We can only do this for the time being, Tang Zheng said helplessly. Dizang of Goguryo woke up from a dream. He secretly used the spatial law and carefully perceived the world of spirits and souls. He found that the world of spirits and souls had stabilized, but this was also temporary. There were still risks. Only by returning the energy that the other party had taken away could the world of spirits and souls be truly stable. However, Dizang of Goguryo still felt emotional. If it weren't for Tang Zheng's help, he would not have been able to do this. The world of spirits and souls would have been truly destroyed. This was good karma. The karma that he had sowed back then had now borne fruit. Every drink and every peck had its own destiny. It was the cycle of karma. Tang Zheng, thank you. Dizang of Goguryo said sincerely. Tang Zheng shook his head and said shamefully, this matter actually started because of me. If it weren't for what I did in the heavens beyond heaven, they definitely wouldn't have set their sights on your world of spirits and souls. Dizang of Goguryo did not delve into the reason. Instead, he shook his head and said, otherwise, even if it weren't for you, their greed would be rising day by day. They would eventually set their sights on our world of spirits and souls and commit the same crime. Tang Zheng stopped arguing and asked, what are you going to do next? Retrieve the energy that belongs to the world of spirits and souls. Dizang of Goguryo said. Tang Zheng pondered for a moment and said, all right, you and I will go to the heavens beyond heaven. Hao Tianwang has put in so much effort to absorb the energy of the world of spirits and souls. He must be up to something big. Xiao Bai and the others may not be able to resist. Do we need to prepare anything? Hao Tianwang has many subordinates. If we want to attack, we must gather all of our men and horses. The army will press forward and win in one battle. We must not give the other party a chance to rise again. Tang Zheng gritted his teeth and set the tone. The creatures in the world of spirits and souls are very special. Even the human world can't stay for long. Can they fight in the heavens beyond heaven for a long time? Dizang of Goguryo voiced his concern. Umo pondered for a moment and smiled, if it was in the past, I definitely wouldn't be able to answer your question. Because the heavens beyond heaven is quite different from the human world and the world of spirits and souls. The heavens beyond heaven doesn't have its own mother-child world, which means it doesn't have its own world of spirits and souls. After all living things die, their souls disappear into the world of spirits and souls. But now that the heavens beyond heaven has absorbed the energy of the world of spirits and souls, it has some of the characteristics of the world of spirits and souls, such as Yin Qi. Dizang of Goguryo understood immediately. His eyes lit up and said, so that's how it is. That means we can move freely in the heavens beyond heaven. Of course. Even if I can't for the time being, I can use the space law to mobilize the Yin Qi between heaven and earth. You will be safe and sound. Looking at Tang Zheng's confident look, Dizang of Goguryo was no longer worried and said, then when do we set off? Tang Zheng's heart moved. He looked at the tired creatures of the world of spirits and souls and said, there's no hurry. Everyone has experienced such a fierce battle and needs to rest. Moreover, once we start marching, there's no turning back. We must plan a foolproof plan. Also, we must mobilize all the combat personnel that can be mobilized. You mean it's not just our world of spirits and souls army? That's right. This concerns the survival of the human world. Naturally, the human world should contribute. Also, I will contact the Dragon Clan. Our three forces will march into the heavens beyond heaven together. We must eliminate Hao Tianwang. As he spoke, his killing intent soared, and the Vajra glared at him. A huge lotus flower spread out from under his feet, which then transformed into a lotus throne that lifted Umo up. Dizang of Goguryo's eyes lit up and said, "Congratulations. The Ksitagarbha Sutra has reached the peak." Tang Zheng nodded slightly. He was not surprised by the changes in his body. The Ksitagarbha Sutra was closely related to the fate of the world of spirits and souls. At this moment, he had merged the fate of the world of spirits and souls into one. The Ksitagarbha Sutra had undergone earth-shattering changes. Chapter 1791. Tang Zheng left the ghost realm and returned to the human world. In the capital, everyone gathered. When they heard about Tang Zheng's plan, they all chose to remain silent. This matter not only concerned the survival of the ghost realm, but also the rise and fall of the human world. If they did not succeed, then they would really die. Wu Junshan and Lan Yu looked at each other and took the lead to express their stance. "Little Zheng, we support you. Whether it's a mountain of knives or a sea of fire, we are all your vanguard." Tang Zheng had already let go of his worries. Seeing his parents so supportive, he was moved and nodded, "Thank you." Cough cough. Suddenly, Tang Dahai walked in. Originally, he had been enjoying his old age and did not care about the world. This time, no one called him, but he heard the news and came on his own. "These old bones of mine have enjoyed so much, it's time to move my muscles and bones. If I just play and do nothing, my body will rust." "Little Zheng, you don't dislike this old bones of yours, right?" Tang Dahai's statement made Tang Zheng stand up and hurriedly welcome him. "Grandfather, you." Tang Dahai waved his hand and said heroically, "If you want to refuse, then don't speak. I've already made up my mind. I'm going to the sky beyond sky. After cultivating for so long, I also want to try my skills. If you don't even fulfill this wish of mine, then I won't be able to rest in peace in the future." At this point, how could Tang Zheng refuse? He could only gratefully smile and say, "Thank you for your support, grandfather." There was no need for more words. Everyone stood up and expressed that they must go to the sky beyond sky and defeat Hao Tianwang. Tang Zheng did not do any mobilization work at all. The mobilization task was successfully completed. Looking at everyone's excited expression, Tang Zheng felt very gratified. These few days, everyone will do the final adjustments. When the Dragon Clan arrives, we will meet up with the Ghost Realm's army and rush to the sky beyond sky. Tang Zheng announced. In the next few days, everyone was full of energy. They were bound to adjust their state to the best to welcome the upcoming battle. Boom! A loud sound rang out in the sky. Golden light covered the sky and dyed the whole world gold. It was a spectacular sight. Everyone in the world couldn't help but look at the sky, not knowing what was going on. However, the pressure that came from the sky was enough to cause one's expression to change. What's going on? That's right. Is some kind of monster coming? Everyone was in a state of panic. Suddenly, golden light flashed, an enormous figure appearing in the 9 heavens. It was a massive creature. The most important thing was its appearance. Almost everyone recognized it. Dragon. The entire world was shaken. Countless pairs of eyes witnessed all of this. It couldn't be fake. Everyone looked at each other. For a moment, they didn't know what to do. Some screamed, some ran away, and some knelt in worship. There were many different things in the world. Suddenly, another golden light flashed past, and another golden dragon appeared in the 9 heavens. Another dragon. Cries of surprise rang out in all directions. Before anyone could come back to their senses, golden light flashed, and then one golden dragon after another appeared in the sky. They were densely packed, blotting out the sky and forming an extraordinarily mighty dragon army. Immediately, everyone in the world was shocked, not knowing what to do. Whoosh! Suddenly, a figure soared into the sky and charged towards the dragon army, as if he was not afraid of the terrifying dragon might at all. Everyone's eyes lit up. They stared at the figure at the same time and kept guessing his identity. In this world, there's probably only one person who dares to challenge the dragon clan. It must be him, and he's the only one. The rumors of Tang Zheng had been spreading for a long time, and many people were no stranger to him. Therefore, when they saw this person who went against the trend, they naturally thought of Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng stopped in the 9 heavens and stood proudly. He looked at the dragon army and even felt gratified. Suddenly, the dragon race bowed respectfully to Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's body and the dragon race were like one was a giant, and the other was as small as an ant. However, the dragon race all bowed to him and called him the dragon god. This scene completely shocked everyone in the world. In the common sense, the dragon race had always been high and mighty, symbolizing supreme status and power. However, now, the dragon race was bowing to Tang Zheng. How was that possible? Many people wondered if their eyes were playing tricks on them. They rubbed their eyes and blinked again. In the end, they were sure that they were not playing tricks on them. Everything was real. Hiss! Everyone gasped angrily, and their expressions were extremely interesting. Then, they gave him a thumbs up and silently praised him. This was too awesome. In the world, people's feelings could no longer be described with words. A god. This thought appeared in many people's minds, and they regarded Tang Zheng as a god. With a loud shout, the others immediately echoed. Immediately, the cheers of the gods resounded throughout the world. Tang Zheng was so high up in the sky, and with his sharp ears and eyes, he actually heard these voices. With his current strength, it was not an exaggeration to call him a god. Tang Zheng nodded to the dragon army and said, "Let's go home first. After dark, we will meet up with the ghost army and set off. If this continues, I'm afraid that people will be scared out of their wits." The Dragon King led the dragon race and said respectfully, "We obey the dragon god's orders." Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Golden light flickered and flew to the ground. It was as if a golden meteor shower was falling from the sky. It was unforgettable and rare. In the capital, when the dragon army landed, they had already transformed into human form. Otherwise, it would have caused a huge uproar. The Dragon King and the other dragons looked around and looked at this new world. In the beginning, they almost lived in this world all the time. It was the greed of this world that gave birth to the devil fruit. The others were already in the open space to welcome the dragon army. The witches and some carefully selected warriors were looking at this special team. Many people were not clear about the relationship between Tang Zheng and the dragon race, and there were countless guesses. But looking at the dragon race's respectful appearance to Tang Zheng, they knew that Tang Zheng's prestige and power were far more powerful than they imagined. Tang Zheng briefly introduced and said to the Dragon King, "You've been working hard for half a day. Take a rest for half a day." In the middle of the night, a gust of cold wind blew, and the entire capital cooled down. Although it was early summer, the temperature was still creepy. Whoosh! A huge ghost gate opened in the villa area. Fortunately, there was no one else. Otherwise, they would definitely scare others. It was already the latter half of the night, when the Yin Qi was at its strongest. The living beings of the ghost realm could freely appear in the human world without worrying about the threat of the Yang Qi. Dizang of Goguryeo took the lead and walked out of the ghost gate. The others followed like shadows, reminding him of the dangers of this mountain. Chapter 1792. The army of the ghost realm and the army of the dragon race converged and looked at each other. The dragon race was a very powerful existence to all realms, and the ghost realm was no exception. Therefore, seeing so many dragon race troops, the ghost realm's people were very confident. Above the 9 heavens, Tang Zheng used the law of space to open a spatial door. With a rumble, a huge hole appeared in the sky. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. One figure after another disappeared into the spatial door. When many ordinary people saw this scene, they were shocked to the extreme. Tang Zheng's current cultivation could already support the spatial door, allowing such a large army to easily pass through the spatial door without needing to rely on the Sumera heavens. Heavens beyond heaven. A huge hole cut across the sky, and countless figures appeared in the sky. Tang Zheng led the army and arrived at heavens beyond heaven. Countless pairs of eyes looked at heavens beyond heaven curiously. This new world was really different, and the scenery was very different. Tang Zheng took the lead and flew straight to the wildlands. The others followed like shadows, majestic and endless. The wildlands was no longer the same as before. It was no longer a desolate scene, but full of vitality. There was a mountain in particular that stood proudly among the crowd, and its aura was majestic. Tang Zheng recognized that mountain at a glance and was shocked. Wasn't that Mount Huagua? This was indeed Mount Huagua. It was the 4 symbols that moved Mount Huagua to the wildlands. A waterfall fell from Mount Huagua like the Milky Way. Not only were there people living on Mount Huagua, there were also many animals. Squeak squeak. Many spiritual monkeys shuttled between Mount Huagua. It was full of vitality, making people feel relaxed and happy. From afar, a group of people rose into the sky from the wildlands to welcome Tang Zheng's army. When they saw Tang Zheng at the front of the crowd, they all bowed and called him alliance leader. These people were all from the righteous Tao and were the subordinates of the righteous Tao alliance leader. When they saw the alliance leader return, they were all excited and overjoyed. Whoosh! A person heard the commotion and flew down from the mountain of flowers and fruits. He directly arrived in front of Tang Zheng and hugged him tightly. Kid, you're finally here, Tian Chanzi said excitedly. Tang Zheng smiled and patted Tian Chanzi's shoulder, saying, How are your carefree days in beyond heaven? How am I free and unfettered? I'm completely working for you. Look, I'm almost skinny. I've been thinking about how to strengthen this group of people all day long, Tian Chanzi said bitterly, but in fact, he wasn't unhappy at all. Tang Zheng smiled and said mysteriously, This time, I'm here to help you settle this once and for all. What do you mean? Tian Chanzi asked, puzzled. Tang Zheng shook his head but did not elaborate. Master. Fang Shishir walked over and called out respectfully. Tian Chanzi laughed heartily. Good disciple, you've made great progress in your cultivation. It seems that you haven't been lazy and have lived up to my teachings. Tang Zheng hugged Fang Shishir's slender waist and said, This is our family Shishir's outstanding talent. It's not just the credit of an idle master like you. Tian Chanzi blushed and glared at Tang Zheng. He really didn't teach Fang Shishir well. He explained, Isn't it too far away? Tang Zheng laughed and said, Everyone is gathered together again. Let's go in first. This time, I brought a lot of helpers for you. Tian Chanzi looked up. When he saw the Dragon Clan and the Dizang of Goguryeo, his eyelids couldn't help but twitch a few times. He was very confident in his own cultivation, especially during this period of time and beyond heaven. It was really like sitting on a rocket. Because he had already untied the knot in his heart and returned to the sect, his cultivation was twice the result with half the effort. However, when he saw the Dragon King and the Kitagarbha Bodhisattva, he still felt ashamed of his inferiority. He realized the gap between the two of them. He was really curious about who the Dragon King was and how he could have such a shocking cultivation. The group of people entered the barbarian land. Tang Zheng admired the changes along the way and praised Tian Chanzi. He was so happy that he almost flew into the sky. Hey, where's Xiao Bai? Tang Zheng looked around and couldn't help but be surprised when he didn't see Xiao Bai. His Majesty led the warriors of the Witch clan to scout for information. The ancestor quickly walked out and explained. Tang Zheng greeted him and said, Ancestor, long time no see. The ancestor looked at Tang Zheng with a smile and said, His Majesty takes care of everything personally. Some time ago, he discovered a strange phenomenon in the sky, so he went to investigate. A strange phenomenon in the sky? Tang Zheng was moved and asked, What strange phenomenon? I can't explain it clearly, but it must be related to Hao Tianwang. His Majesty was worried, so he went to find out what the traitor was doing. The ancestor said bitterly. Tang Zheng subconsciously looked at the Dizang of Goguryeo. The Dizang of Goguryeo was thoughtful and turned to look at Tang Zheng. Both of them were moved and thought of the same thing. The Dizang of Goguryeo said in a deep voice, Could it be related to the ghost world? Tang Zheng nodded and said, It must be the strange phenomenon caused by Dizang of Goguryeo absorbing the energy of the ghost world. Beyond heaven is a big world. What is Hao Tianwang scheming? The ancestor was shocked and said angrily, It's definitely not a good thing. Wouldn't His Majesty be in danger? Tang Zheng shook his head and comforted, Don't worry, Xiaobai is not weak, and he has the witch tribe warriors to protect him. There shouldn't be any problems. The 4 symbols are also there. The ancestor added. Tang Zheng smiled and was even more relieved. He said, Then there's no need to worry. The ancestor knows the strength of the 4 symbols. Even if there is danger, they can protect Xiaobai. The ancestor nodded hesitantly and said, I still feel uneasy. Let's go find His Majesty as soon as possible. Tang Zheng pondered for a moment and said, Let's settle them down. I'll go find him myself. The Dizang of Goguryeo was originally worried that the beings of the ghost world could not survive in beyond heaven, but now it seemed that it was unnecessary. It was still daytime in beyond heaven, and the yang qi was quite strong, but they were safe and sound. He glanced at Tang Zheng and reminded him, Tang Zheng, you were right earlier. Beyond heaven is indeed full of yin qi. We can live and fight normally. Tang Zheng nodded slightly. He also noticed this point, which meant that Hao Tianwang had indeed absorbed a lot of energy from the ghost world. He was probably plotting something big. Dizang of Goguryeo, Dragon King, settle your people down and get used to it. I'm afraid a war will break out in a few days. Tang Zheng reminded. The 2 knew the seriousness of the matter, so they did not say much and nodded. I'll go with you. The few girls finally came to beyond heaven, and their excitement was overflowing. Yi Dingdang, Wu, and Lu Qingmei had already been to beyond heaven. Tang Zheng thought for a moment and waved to Fang Shishir. He said, Shishir, come with me and enjoy the scenery of beyond heaven. Chapter 1793. Sky Beyond Heaven. Fang Shishir was appreciating this vast new world for the first time. She was so engrossed in the scenery that her eyes were not enough to take it all in. Sky beyond heaven is really different. It's so beautiful, Fang Shishir exclaimed. Tang Zheng nodded in agreement. Yes, this is Xiaobai's home, but now it has been occupied by Hao Tianwang. We must help him take back Sky Beyond Heaven. Fang Shishir nodded heavily. I understand. How can such a beautiful home fall into the wrong hands? In a while, don't act rashly. Listen to all my orders. I will protect you well, Tang Zheng reminded her. Fang Shishir smiled faintly and took Tang Zheng's hand. With you, of course I can rest assured. Whoosh! The somersault cloud carried the 2 of them and flew straight to their destination. From afar, Tang Zheng saw the familiar yet unfamiliar place. It was where Sky Castle used to be, but now it was different. Sky Castle had fallen and turned into ruins, overgrown with weeds. It was slightly desolate. There was a dead silence between heaven and earth, and there was a kind of stifling atmosphere. The somersault cloud came to an abrupt stop. Tang Zheng and Fang Shishir looked down and looked at the land in surprise. It was really different from before. Fang Shishir covered her mouth in surprise. What's wrong with this place? Why is it so desolate and dilapidated? It's so different from before. This used to be the center of Sky Beyond Heaven. After a great battle, Sky Castle fell and became like this. Tang Zheng explained concisely. Fang Shishir suddenly understood and said thoughtfully, then what about Hao Tian Wang and the others? Could it be that they started a new life and went to other places? It doesn't look like there are signs of human habitation here. Tang Zheng thought for a while and shook his head. No, Tian Chanzi's intelligence says that Hao Tian Wang and the others are still stationed here. It can't be wrong. Then where are they? Fang Shishir asked suspiciously. Xiao Bai also came here, but we don't know where he is. There must be something fishy going on. Tang Zheng said with certainty. Fang Shishir understood and said, then let's go down first. Tang Zheng nodded. He controlled the somersault cloud and slowly landed on the ground. Be careful, Tang Zheng reminded Fang Shishir. Then, they jumped off the somersault cloud and stepped on the messy ruins. The two of them had already appeared, but the surroundings were still deathly silent. This was extremely strange. After all, this was Hao Tianwang's lair, and there was no reaction to the invasion of foreign enemies. This was too unusual. The two of them searched for a long time but still couldn't find any trace of the enemy. They had no choice but to stop. Fang Shishir stared intensely at Tang Zheng. She saw him frown and ponder. After a while, he said, the yin qi here is very dense. It is because it absorbed too much of the yin qi from the ghost realm. Therefore, this is definitely Hao Tianwang's lair. But where are they? Fang Shishir asked. Heaven and earth. Since they can't go up to the sky, they must be underground. Tang Zheng's gaze turned and fell on the ground. Fang Shishir also stared at the ground at the same time. She said incredulously, can people hide underground? Moreover, it's not just one or two, but so many people. Hao Tianwang is a true expert. Everything that seems impossible becomes possible in his hands. It's not surprising. Tang Zheng explained. Fang Shishir suddenly understood and said, I understand. Then let's go underground. Yes. Fang Shishir was about to ask how to go down and where to find the entrance when she saw Tang Zheng's foot stomp on the ground. Boom! Like the weight of Mount Tai, the ground shook, and pieces of ruins floated up like dust. Ka ka ka! The ground cracked inch by inch, and cracks appeared that went all the way to the bottom of the ground. It was unfathomable. Fang Shishir hurriedly grabbed Tang Zheng's arm. Only then did she stabilize her body and look at the scene in shock. This was just the power of a single stomp, but it was really incredible. Tang Zheng stared at the cracks without blinking. Wisps of yin qi rushed out of the cracks. There was no doubt that there was more dense yin qi underground. It was really underground. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up. He protected Fang Shishir and said, let's go down. Whoosh! The two of them were like meteorites from outer space. They jumped into the crack at lightning speed and rushed straight down. The yin qi is so dense. After descending for a while, Fang Shishir also noticed the abnormality. She sighed with a serious face. It can only be said that they didn't hide it well enough. Tang Zheng snorted and increased his speed. Gradually, the yin qi was like a lake, becoming extremely sticky. If a normal person was surrounded by such a strong yin qi, they would have died a long time ago. But Tang Zheng was like a fish in water. He curled his finger and the yin qi seemed to come alive. It actually retreated, rumbling, like an angry dragon, rushing into the bottomless abyss. Boom! There was an earth-shattering explosion from the ground, and a sharp whistling sound rushed out of the ground. Tang Zheng did not slow down. He roared, hidden sword, attack! Buzz! The hidden sword flashed in the air and burst out a bright light. The light suddenly trembled, and a treasure had already hit the hidden sword. The hidden sword was not damaged at all, but the opponent's treasure was damaged. It turned into a dazzling light and quietly fell. Powerful! Fang Shishir praised in her heart, and clenched her fist. Tang Zheng was expressionless. This attack did not cause any waves in his heart, because the power was not strong. Since you have shown yourself, don't even think about escaping. Whoosh! The hidden sword turned into a ray of light and disappeared into the darkness. Not long after, a scream came from the darkness. Obviously, the opponent had died under the hidden sword. Tang Zheng and Fang Shishir were like shadows. They caught up with the hidden sword, but the scene in front of them had already changed. A door appeared in front of them, emitting a mysterious light, illuminating the surroundings. The surroundings were silent. There was nothing else. The crack had also stopped. It was obvious that they had reached the bottom. Where did this door lead to? Tang Zheng looked for a while, and pressed his hands on the door. His palm power erupted, but the door did not move. It was as if it was connected with the ground. It could not be moved at all. One must know how powerful Tang Zheng was. It was enough to split a mountain, but he still could not move this door. It could be seen that this door was very strange. Fang Shishir was surprised. She opened her mouth and asked, "How could this be?" Tang Zheng let go of his hand and looked up and down at the door. He said thoughtfully, "This is not an ordinary door. It seems to have a special door." "What door?" Tang Zheng did not say a word. He stretched out a hand and pressed on the door again. His heart moved, and he felt a trace of abnormal fluctuations in the space. Another world? Tang Zheng was shocked. Could it be that behind this door was another world? How could there be another world in the sky? Without a doubt, this must be related to Hao Tianwang. Maybe it was related to him. He spent a lot of effort to absorb the energy of the ghost world. Chapter 1794. Fang Shishir only knew a little about the law of space and had not reached the realm of comprehending the law of space. She asked in confusion, "Then how do we get to this world?" If they couldn't enter this world, everything was just empty talk. Both of them knew this very well. Tang Zheng pondered for a moment and said, "We can travel from the human world to the outland, so naturally, we can also travel from the outland to this world." Fang Shishir's eyes lit up as she looked at Tang Zheng expectantly. Tang Zheng calmed himself down and silently felt the other space. The law of space quietly began to operate. Break! Tang Zheng growled and spat out a burst of energy from his palm, causing the door to tremble and the surroundings to tremble. This space seemed to be unable to withstand it. "The spatial door will open soon, but I don't know what the situation is on the other side and what dangers there are. So, you must pay attention," Tang Zheng warned. Fang Shishir nodded. Boom! There was a loud noise and the door shook violently. A black hole appeared, allowing two people to pass through. "Let's go." Tang Zheng pulled Fang Shishir and went through together. The scene in front of them suddenly changed. It was pitch black, and they couldn't even see their fingers. What's going on? The two were shocked. This was not the space-time between two spaces, but a real world. Tang Zheng was very clear about this. But this world was too strange. There was no light at all, as if there was only darkness left between heaven and earth. This was really too abnormal. Boom! A ball of fire burned and floated in front of the two, illuminating the surroundings. It was empty, and there was nothing. Fang Shishir finally saw Tang Zheng's appearance and asked worriedly, "Why is this world like this?" Tang Zheng shook his head bitterly, "I don't know. But the yin qi here is rich, even stronger than in the world of spirits and souls." Fang Shishir covered her mouth in surprise and asked, "The yin qi here is stronger than in the world of spirits and souls? Then why don't I have any reaction? There doesn't seem to be any discomfort." Yin qi was extremely harmful to the human body. If one was exposed to yin qi for too long, one's life would be in danger. However, Fang Shishir did not feel the slightest abnormality, which was very strange. Huh? Tang Zheng wasn't afraid of yin qi, so he didn't feel anything. However, after Fang Shishir's reminder, he suddenly realized. He was still in a state of shock as he said, "That makes sense. The yin qi here seems to have been transformed. It no longer hurts the human body. Huh? Fang Shishir was speechless. Without a doubt, this was definitely Hao Tianwang's handiwork. After all, he and his subordinates were not from the ghost realm. They had to transform their yin qi in order to live safely under this sky. Hao Tianwang has put in so much effort, so he must be planning something big. We can't let our guard down and just let him do as he pleases. Tang Zheng said firmly. As soon as he finished speaking, he and Fang Shishir had already jumped onto the somersault cloud and soared into the sky. The somersault cloud was extremely fast. After flying for a short while, there seemed to be a lot of shadows in front of them. These were not enemies, but a continuous stretch of buildings. Previously, they had passed through a flat land, so these buildings appeared particularly abrupt. They must have extraordinary value and significance. I'm afraid the enemy is in these buildings. Tang Zheng reminded. Fang Shishir understood what he meant. Immediately, her whole body tensed up, ready to go. However, the two were still very puzzled. The world in front of them was dark. There wasn't even a little bit of light. How did the enemy live? They couldn't possibly live in the darkness all the time. Besides, the heavenly fire and somersault cloud were too conspicuous. When they got close, Tang Zheng immediately put away the heavenly fire and merged with the dark world. There was only darkness left between heaven and earth. They couldn't even see their fingers if they stretched out their hands. Fang Shishir widened her eyes, but could only distinguish a vague image. Tang Zheng was not afraid of the dark. Even in the dark, he had extraordinary eyesight. However, it was different this time. He couldn't see far in the dark. He wasn't much better than Fang Shishir. There's something strange about this darkness. Tang Zheng made a judgment and became even more cautious. Whoosh! Suddenly, the sound of something breaking through the air came from afar. The strong murderous aura was awe-inspiring. Their hearts trembled. Enemy attack. Tang Zheng warned Fang Shishir in a low voice. With a point of his finger, the hidden mysterious sword flew out as if it was his arm. Boom! With a loud noise, the hidden mysterious sword flew back. It seemed that it couldn't do anything to the enemy and was even bounced back. The hidden mysterious sword was a divine weapon. Its power was extraordinary. However, it flew back. This shocked Tang Zheng and Fang Shishir. They looked at each other. Although they couldn't see each other's expressions in the dark, they could feel it. What was going on? Both of them had questions in their minds. Tang Zheng snorted and said, I'm in the Saint Plane. If I could be blocked by such a small attack, then I wouldn't be in the Saint Plane. Since his whereabouts had been exposed, he gave up being careful. Instead, he activated his power. The hidden mysterious sword immediately lit up. Boom! A flame appeared on the hidden mysterious sword. The hidden mysterious sword turned into a fire sword. The heavenly fire was like the sun. It drove away the surrounding darkness. Everything gradually became clear. Tang Zheng looked up and seemed to see something. It was a tall tower. The tower was huge. It towered into the clouds. He couldn't see the end of it. Even the heavenly fire couldn't illuminate it completely. This tower is not normal. Tang Zheng judged based on his experience. Because, more and more yin qi came from the top of the tower. Although he couldn't see clearly, he could tell something from this. Perhaps the hidden mystic sword had hit the tower and then bounced back. Whoosh! Suddenly, a black light came from the sky. It was as fast as the wind. It made people's hearts tremble. Be careful of the attack. Tang Zheng saw through it at a glance. He protected Fang Shishir behind him. The hidden mysterious sword shone brightly. The heavenly fire gathered on the sword and burned fiercely. Roar! The hidden mysterious sword let out a high-pitched sword cry. It rose up and went straight to the sky. The hidden mystic sword and the black light clashed in midair. A blazing light exploded and flickered, like fireworks scattering in all directions. The hidden mysterious sword and the black light were in a stalemate. Neither of them could move forward. They kept consuming each other's energy. Hiss. Tang Zheng sucked in a breath of cold air. Could it be that this black light was also a sacred weapon? Otherwise, how could it possess such a powerful might? Humph. Tang Zheng snorted and said, I want to see your true face. He moved his mind and poured his power into the hidden mysterious sword. Whoosh! The hidden mysterious sword shone brightly. It let out waves of sword cries. As for the heavenly fire, it was completely scattered. Tang Zheng and Fang Shishir finally saw everything clearly. There was nothing in this place except for the tower. It was all flat land. Bang! The black light suddenly exploded and disappeared. The hidden mysterious sword won. It trembled and flew up angrily. It went straight to the top of the tower and disappeared into the darkness. End of chapter. G_Cup Female Idol's first video, valiantly wins the championship. Please follow the official WeChat account. Mainvlu 123, press for 3 seconds to copy. Chapter 1795. Tang Zheng and the hidden mystic sword were connected. Whatever the hidden mystic sword saw was what he saw. When the hidden mystic sword soared into the darkness, its entire body shone brightly and shot out in all directions. However, it did not completely disperse the darkness. The darkness seemed to have infinite power, blocking the sword light from moving forward. Tang Zheng frowned slightly. This darkness was very strange. However, Tang Zheng gradually saw the clues. This tower was actually made of bones, but the piles of bones had already turned black. If not for Tang Zheng's careful observation, he would not have been able to tell. Tang Zheng turned pale with fright as he watched this scene. White bones had built such a tall tower that reached the clouds. How many white bones did it take to kill so many living beings? Suddenly, Tang Zheng quivered and had a terrifying thought. This place has become a ruin. I don't see any other life. Could it be that all these life forms were used to build this tower? Hiss. Tang Zheng sucked in a breath of cold air. He was really frightened by this sudden thought. Fang Shishir saw the change in Tang Zheng and her heart trembled. She hurriedly asked, Tang Zheng, what's wrong? Tang Zheng shook his head. His expression was solemn. He did not say a word and said, let's go up. We must investigate thoroughly. Whoosh! The somersault cloud carried the two of them and soared into the sky. The surrounding darkness kept gathering. The heavenly fire turned into a huge fireball and covered the two of them, preventing the darkness from approaching. Boom boom. Suddenly, a loud sound seemed to come from the horizon. It made people's heartstrings tremble. Through the hidden mystic sword, Tang Zheng saw 2 rays of black light fall from the sky. The hidden mystic sword shone brightly and turned into a huge sword. The hidden mystic sword blocked the 2 rays of black light. However, its forward momentum was blocked. Coincidentally, the somersault cloud caught up. Tang Zheng grabbed the hidden mystic sword with his big hand. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The hidden mystic sword once again exploded with brilliant sword light and shattered the black light. Hao Tianwang is definitely at the top of the tower. It's just that this tower seems to have no end. I can't see Hao Tianwang at all. Damn it, Tang Zheng muttered angrily. Fang Shishir looked up at the sky. She couldn't see anything, but that dangerous aura made her heart tremble. She had an idea and said, we can't find Hao Tianwang, but why do we have to be so passive? We can take the initiative. What idea do you have? Tang Zheng asked in surprise. Fang Shishir pointed at the tower and said, this tower must be very important to Hao Tianwang. If we destroy this tower, won't he be able to appear? Ha ha ha, good idea. Tang Zheng immediately understood Fang Shishir's intention, so he gently touched the hidden mysterious sword and said, hidden mysterious sword, it's up to you. Wang! The hidden mysterious sword let out a high-pitched cry, breaking through the air. In the blink of an eye, it struck the black tower. Boom! The tower shook violently. Pieces of black bones were blown away, and a hole appeared in the tower. Tang Zheng, you're courting death. Suddenly, a roar came from the sky. A huge figure swooped down with great momentum. It was terrifying. Tang Zheng heard this and was happy, saying, Hao Tianwang, you've finally appeared. He was not afraid at all. Holding the hidden mysterious sword, he rushed into the sky. A sword light seemed to split the heaven and earth, fiercely chopping towards Hao Tianwang. Boom! Hao Tianwang's arm shook, and a pitch-black cloak rose from his back like a fluttering flag. A black light shot out from the cloak, blocking the hidden mysterious sword. At the same time, the air quickly solidified. The darkness in all directions seemed to have solidified, and quickly gathered towards Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng raised his eyebrows. He was a little surprised because Hao Tianwang used to be good at water-type divine arts. He used the ice sword to perfection, but this time, he kept using this black cloak. It was really strange. However, when he felt the change in the air, Tang Zheng suddenly realized that Hao Tianwang had evolved this divine art. The change in the air was the effect of water-type divine arts, but the power was even stronger. This air was like water. It was everywhere. When the air solidified, it was a very terrifying attack. Tang Zheng already felt the threat. Ka ka ka. The air quickly solidified, trapping Tang Zheng in the center. The flame of the heavenly fire was still burning and swaying, but it suddenly stopped as if it was frozen. Tang Zheng sucked in a breath of cold air. He raised his eyebrows and shouted, break! Whoosh! The hidden mysterious sword quickly slashed out countless swords in all directions. The sword light turned into balls of intense light. Bang bang bang! The air shattered. It was like the ice on a frozen lake being crushed. The air suddenly circulated. Charge! Tang Zheng roared. He held the hidden mysterious sword and rushed towards Hao Tianwang. Whoosh! Hao Tianwang's cloak shook and covered himself. The hidden mysterious sword hit the place where Hao Tianwang was standing, but it was empty. It did not hit Hao Tianwang at all. Tang Zheng was shocked. He looked around. Other than the dark air and the tall tower, there was no sign of Hao Tianwang. Where was he? Tang Zheng and Fang Shishir looked at each other. Ha ha ha, Tang Zheng, how can you do whatever you want in my place? You think you can kill me with this broken sword? You are really too naive. Hao Tianwang's arrogant laughter rang in their ears. They could not tell where he was. It was as if he disappeared, or it was as if he merged with the air. Don't waste your time looking for me. If I want you to see me, you can see me. If I don't want you to see me, it's useless even if you rack your brains. Hao Tianwang said proudly. Tang Zheng was completely focused. He firmly protected Fang Shishir and asked, Hao Tianwang, what are you doing? What is going on in this world? Hao Tianwang angrily snorted and asked, Tang Zheng, did my son die in your hands? That's right. You sent him to absorb the energy of the ghost world and destroy it. You destroyed hundreds of millions of lives in the ghost world. How can I just sit by and do nothing? He deserved to die. Moreover, he was killed by you. Tang Zheng said firmly. Nonsense. How could I kill him? Hao Tianwang defended himself. If you didn't send him to the ghost world, how could he have died? Tang Zheng retorted. Nonsense. He went to the ghost world willingly. Moreover, I gave him a sacred weapon to protect himself. He was killed by you. Tang Zheng, I want to avenge my son. Hao Tianwang's murderous aura surged. The air was filled with the smell of smoke and killing intent. Although my son is dead, he will be able to rest in peace after seeing my achievements in the underworld. Because, he has a part to play in this. Tang Zheng curiously asked, what are you plotting? What is this tower for? Hao Tianwang proudly said, when it's time for you to know, you will naturally know. You are just like Xiaobai, wanting to get to the bottom of everything. In the end, you will lose your life here. What? Tang Zheng was shocked. This sentence was like a bolt from the blue. Chapter 1796. Tang Zheng's eyes were like torches as he stared into the darkness. He asked, what happened to Xiaobai? Where is he? Hao Tianwang paused for a moment and grinned. You're so worried about him. You must be very close. Very good, very good. You'll meet soon. Xiaobai was killed by you, right? Tang Zheng asked hysterically and angrily. He's not dead yet, but he's not far from it. Hao Tianwang said proudly. Tang Zheng sighed in relief. As long as Xiaobai was not dead, then there was still a chance. He immediately asked, where is Xiaobai? The top of the tower. If you want to witness his final death, then you'll have to hurry to the top of the tower. Otherwise, you'll miss this last chance. Hao Tianwang said gloatingly. Tang Zheng's head tightened and his face became very serious. Fang Shishir was shocked and urged, let's hurry to the top of the tower. Tang Zheng nodded lightly. Without another word, he held the hidden mystic sword and stepped on the somersault cloud. He turned into a shadow and soared into the sky. Do you really think it's that easy to reach the top of the tower? Hao Tianwang shouted. Whoosh! Darkness gathered from all directions and the light retreated step by step. In the end, it only retreated around Tang Zheng's body and could not shine any further. An invisible force was like a rope that tried to bind and imprison Tang Zheng. Fang Shishir's face changed as she felt the pressure. She also used her talisman to resist. She did not want to be a burden to Tang Zheng. The somersault cloud was not slow as it resisted the force of the imprisonment. Whoosh! The somersault cloud flew close to the top of the tower. The tower gradually shrank, but the force became stronger and stronger. It was evident from the somersault cloud's slow speed. Tang Zheng snorted. With a thought, he used the sky-swallowing technique. A black hole suddenly appeared in his palm and aimed at the top of the tower. Whoosh! The surrounding darkness was immediately swallowed into the black hole, and the terrifying power gradually dissipated. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up. I've finally found a way to restrain you. Hao Tianwang, have a taste of my sky-swallowing technique. Tang Zheng shouted. The sky-swallowing technique's power increased greatly, and the black hole rapidly expanded. Once darkness was sucked into the black hole, light gradually gained the upper hand, illuminating more areas. Tang Zheng took a closer look and finally saw the scene at the top of the tower clearly. Xiaobai was being imprisoned by the black skeletons. The black skeletons were like maggots that wrapped tightly around him, not giving him any chance to escape. Whitey's face was deathly pale, and she was on the verge of death. She was already at the critical juncture of life and death. Tang Zheng's expression tightened as he roared, Xiaobai! Xiaobai opened his eyes with difficulty. When he saw Tang Zheng, his eyes lit up. He moved his lips and shouted weakly, Master, Xiaobai, I'm coming to save you. You have to hold on. Tang Zheng shouted. Without the mysterious force blocking him, the somersault cloud's speed increased. In the blink of an eye, he rushed to the top of the tower. When he looked down, he couldn't see the bottom of the tower at all. He didn't know how high the top of the tower was. Tang Zheng and Xiaobai were very close. Tang Zheng reached out his hand, trying to save Xiaobai. Whoosh! An air-piercing sound came from afar. A huge palm appeared between the two. The palm was as black as ink, but it was as big as a mountain. It slammed toward Tang Zheng. Break! Tang Zheng roared. The hidden mystic sword shone brightly. However, the hidden mystic sword was caught by the palm. At the same time, vine-like things extended from all directions. They were like thousands of arms, attacking Tang Zheng at the same time. Tang Zheng hurriedly said to Fang Shishir, I'll stop Hao Tianwang. You go save Xiaobai. Yes. Fang Shishir nodded vigorously. She raised her magic treasure and attacked the black bones that trapped Xiao Bai. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of metal hitting metal rose and fell. Sparks flew everywhere. Crack. One of the black bones broke. Xiao Bai's expression relaxed. He seemed to be much more relaxed. Fang Shishir was overjoyed. This meant that it worked. She hurriedly comforted him, Xiao Bai, hold on. I'll save you immediately. Whitey had a grateful expression on its face, but it was too weak to say anything. Hao Tianwang also saw this scene. He was shocked and angry. He roared, stop. The attack suddenly became stronger. Tang Zheng used the hidden mystic sword and resisted step by step. He was not at a disadvantage. After all, Tang Zheng's cultivation was in the Saint Realm. Hao Tianwang had a great advantage by relying on his mysterious magic. However, facing Tang Zheng, who was in the Saint Realm, he might not be able to gain an advantage. Seeing Fang Shishir's progress, Tang Zheng was relieved. He was very lucky to have brought Fang Shishir with him. Otherwise, with his own strength, he would not have the time to save Xiao Bai. Crack, crack, crack. Pieces of the black bones shattered and turned into fine powder. They drifted with the wind. Xiao Bai's complexion became better and better. Finally, the last piece of black bone shattered. Xiao Bai was finally completely free. His complexion had undergone a tremendous change. He was no longer on the verge of death. Instead, he was full of vitality. It turned out that the black bones were constantly devouring his vitality. Once his vitality was completely devoured, he would also become a black skeleton. If it were not for Xiao Bai's high cultivation and royal bloodline, he would have been killed. He jumped and rushed toward Hao Tianwang. He roared, Hao Tianwang, I'll fight you to the death. Hurry up and release the 4 symbols. The 4 symbols. Tang Zheng was shocked. He looked around and did not see any trace of the 4 symbols. He hurriedly asked, where are the 4 symbols? He was suppressed at the bottom of the tower. Without the 4 symbols as the foundation, the tower could not be built. Once the tower was completed, night would fill the world. The eternal night would descend. The eternal night would descend? Tang Zheng frowned in puzzlement. He did not understand the meaning of this sentence. Xiao Bai hurriedly explained, Hao Tianwang is not willing to admit defeat. I don't know where he found this evil spell. He actually absorbs the energy of the ghost world to release the curse of the eternal night. Once the eternal night descends, there will be no day in this world. The land shrouded by night will become the land ruled by Hao Tianwang. Tang Zheng was struck with inspiration. He was overwhelmed with shock and asked, you mean he can rule the land of night? Yes, he told me himself that he can control the darkness. Look, isn't the darkness controlled by him? Tang Zheng looked around. The darkness in the distance was like a tiger watching its prey. It had endless power. Tang Zheng had never heard of or seen this kind of spell. His heartbeat quickened as he asked, Hao Tianwang, what is this eternal night spell? How did you get such an evil spell? Hao Tianwang was proud of himself. His voice came from all directions and filled the huge space. What do you mean by, at the end of the road, there is a light at the end of the tunnel? Tang Zheng, you forced me to the end of the road. You didn't expect this to give me a chance, did you? What chance? Someone showed me the right path and taught me the eternal night spell. G_Cup Female Idol's first video, valiantly wins the championship. Please follow the official WeChat account. Mainvlu 123, press for 3 seconds to copy. Chapter 1797. Someone had taught Hao Tianwang the eternal night technique. These words were earth-shattering, instantly attracting the attention of Tang Zheng and Fang Shishir. The two looked at each other and saw through each other's thoughts. This also meant that there was someone behind Hao Tianwang, giving him pointers. Who was this person? Why did he help Hao Tianwang? What ulterior motives did he have? Could it be that there was a third mysterious force in the realm beyond heaven besides Hao Tianwang and Xiao Bai? He had never heard Xiao Bai mention this before. Tang Zheng immediately looked suspiciously at Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai understood tacitly and hurriedly shook his head. Master, I also don't know who Hao Tianwang is referring to. Tang Zheng's expression darkened slightly. Hao Tianwang, why don't you find a reliable excuse? Who else in the realm beyond heaven is so powerful that they can give you pointers? Tang Zheng purposely didn't believe him and tried to pry the secret out of Hao Tianwang. Hao Tianwang sneered. You don't believe me, do you? I didn't believe it at first either, but the facts are right in front of you. You have no choice but to believe it. Xiao Bai flew into a rage. Then who is the other party? You asked him to stand out in the open and instigate you from behind. What's so great about that? Hao Tianwang was unmoved and said indifferently, even I don't know where he is, so how can I ask him to come out? After a slight pause, Hao Tianwang mocked, I can't be more clear about your little thoughts. You want to provoke the other party to come out, but unfortunately, you won't be able to do so. Xiao Bai's expression hardened. Master, who cares about the eternal night technique? Our top priority is to overthrow this tower and save the four symbols. Tang Zheng secretly nodded and simply gave up on asking. Hao Tianwang, then I'll have a taste of your eternal night technique. Whoosh! A black hole appeared on Tang Zheng's palm and began absorbing everything around it. The space around the black hole began to distort. Hao Tianwang still didn't show himself. He hid in the darkness and shouted, You want to break my eternal night technique? Dream on. Whoosh! Whoosh! Streaks of black light shot out from the tower and entered the pitch-black sky. Immediately, it was as if a curtain had been pulled down, and the world was completely plunged into darkness. The heavenly flame flickered incessantly, and the light was frozen. It was impossible for it to shine on other places. Xiao Bai leaped high into the air and charged into the darkness without any regard for his own safety. His magic treasure, the Bloodthirst Scepter, shot out one bloody line after another as it clashed and tangled with the darkness. Shua! The hidden mystic sword also flew up. Tang Zheng was multitasking. He used the hidden mystic sword and the sky-swallowing technique at the same time. A fierce battle stirred up this space, causing it to fluctuate violently. All of a sudden, Yuan Ying's avatar's voice rang out in Tang Zheng's mind, eager to give it a try. Multitasking, how can you do it without me? Let me lend you a hand. No need. Tang Zheng refused on the spot. Yuan Ying's avatar was his true trump card. He wasn't willing to use it unless it was absolutely necessary. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so easy to deal with once the enemy was on guard. Additionally, Tang Zheng still had strength to spare. There was no need for Yuan Ying's avatar to help him. Yuan Ying's avatar said lazily, then let me know when you need me. With that, he lay down lazily in Tang Zheng's violet palace as if he didn't care at all. The darkness was like a rapidly expanding net. Tang Zheng tried to tear open an opening with the sky-swallowing technique and the hidden mystic sword in tandem. Although Hao Tianwang didn't appear, he gradually became apprehensive after seeing Tang Zheng show no signs of retreating. Just how did you do it? What's your cultivation level? Tang Zheng smiled mysteriously. Hao Tianwang finally saw through the clues and said mysteriously, what do you think? You can't possibly be at the 9th rank of the Mahayana realm. Hao Tianwang came to this conclusion. That was because he was at the 9th rank of the Mahayana realm, and with the help of the Evernight art, his combat strength had far surpassed the 9th rank. Even so, he still couldn't do anything to Tang Zheng. Didn't this mean that Tang Zheng's cultivation was far beyond the 9th rank of the Mahayana realm? His heart was shaken as a terrifying thought occurred to him. Could it be that you've reached that realm? That realm. Hao Tianwang didn't say it clearly because he wasn't sure what kind of situation and feeling it was. It was as though there was a layer of gauze separating him from the truth. Tang Zheng had already determined from these words that Hao Tianwang's cultivation hadn't reached the sage realm and was only enhanced by the Evernight art. Immediately, he felt more at ease and said with a mysterious smile, "It seems you know a lot." After saying this, Hao Tianwang was certain that Tang Zheng had reached that mysterious realm. His mind was in chaos because he was well aware of how powerful that realm was and had an innate fear of it. Unfair, too unfair. How old are you? You can actually break through the final barrier. I've been searching for so many years but to no avail, Hao Tianwang muttered with conviction. Tang Zheng had been paying attention to the surrounding movements all this time. Seeing Hao Tianwang's great emotional fluctuations, he thought that this was a good opportunity. It would be easy to reveal flaws as long as one's mind was in chaos. As expected, a slight fluctuation came from a corner of the sky. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up. The hidden profound sword was like a scorching sun, shining with a dazzling light. Tang Zheng roared. Kill! Whoosh! The hidden profound sword pierced through the air and struck that corner. Ah! A miserable scream rang out as Hao Tianwang's battered figure appeared. His face was full of shock as he looked at Tang Zheng in disbelief. Their eyes met. Tang Zheng was secretly delighted. His chance had come. He attacked Hao Tianwang like a gust of wind. Hao Tianwang's mind was in chaos. He didn't have any intention of staying. He only hoped to leave as soon as possible and save his life. Pfft! The hidden profound sword brought a trail of blood. Hao Tianwang risked injury and jumped into the darkness, disappearing without a trace. Tang Zheng, I'll be back. This sky beyond heaven will belong to me. Hao Tianwang's voice gradually faded until it disappeared. Xiao Bai anxiously shouted, Master, he escaped. Tang Zheng wanted to take advantage of the victory to pursue. Suddenly, a crack appeared in the sky. There was a rumbling sound, like a bolt from the blue. A large crack appeared in the sky, and then it shattered. The surroundings shook violently. This space was unstable and was about to collapse. Tang Zheng gave up on pursuing. He stared at the tower and shouted, Save the four symbols first. Boom! The hidden profound sword slashed the tower. A crack extended from the top to the foundation. There was a series of sounds, and the space completely collapsed. Tang Zheng's big hand slashed forward, and a spatial door appeared. He hurriedly shouted to Xiao Bai and Fang Shishir, you two go in first. He swooped down to the ground and saw the dying four symbols in the distance. He grabbed the four symbols and rushed into the spatial door. Chapter 1798. A number of figures jumped out of the spatial door and looked back at the gradually closing spatial door. Their hearts were filled with lingering fear, and their breathing had become much heavier. Tang Zheng calmed himself down and looked at the four symbols. How are you? The four symbols had recovered a bit of spirit after leaving the tower and said in shame, I'm fine. I'm sorry, it's because I'm useless that I fell into Hao Tianwang's hands. No, it's because I'm useless. I rushed over thousands of kilometers but fell into Hao Tianwang's trap. Not only did I put myself in danger, but I also almost killed the four symbols. Xiao Bai said impatiently, taking the initiative to shoulder the responsibility. Fang Shishir was kind-hearted and advised, you can't blame them. After all, Hao Tianwang is too cunning and powerful. After the group finished speaking, Tang Zheng looked around and teased, you want to shoulder the responsibility so badly? Xiao Bai and the four symbols lowered their heads. Keep your spirits up. Tang Zheng roared loudly, this isn't your fault. It's Hao Tianwang's unintentional scheme. Moreover, even I was surprised by his changes and breakthroughs. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, Tang Zheng wouldn't have imagined that Hao Tianwang actually had such a trick up his sleeve. The Evernight art sounded very powerful. Moreover, he knew how powerful it was after trying it out. Who do you think is the one who taught Hao Tianwang the Evernight art? Tang Zheng asked curiously. The group glanced at each other in dismay. Little White and the four guardians glanced at each other and said, we don't know either, but one thing is certain. This person's natural disposition is cruel, and the Evernight art actually requires the sacrifice of so many lives to refine. From this, we can see that. Tang Zheng nodded secretly and said, Hao Tianwang's subordinates have all turned into black skeletons. No, there should be a part of it. Otherwise, how could he make a comeback? Xiao Bai denied. The four symbols chimed in. I was suppressed under the pagoda, so I felt it even more deeply. It was simply like hell. Darkness shrouded my surroundings, and it was like iron chains shackling me. Hao Tianwang said that he needed you as the foundation for the 10,000 zhang tower to be built from the ground. Now that you're out of danger, he's using the same trick again. How can he build the tower again? Tang Zheng asked doubtfully. The others also frowned. Obviously, they were troubled by this problem. Tang Zheng racked his brains but couldn't come up with anything after thinking for a long time. He said to Si Xiang sternly, Si Xiang, after we go back this time, you'll stay at home. You absolutely can't go out on your own and give Hao Tianwang an opportunity. Immediately, the four symbols leveled up. They were like national treasures that had to be protected. The four symbols also understood the seriousness of the matter and nodded in agreement. They glanced at the ruined sky city, shook their heads, and left. Whoosh whoosh. A wave of spatial fluctuations came, and Hao Tianwang's figure appeared again. He glared fiercely in the direction Tang Zheng and the others left, gritting his teeth. Tang Zheng, you've ruined my plans again. You and I are irreconcilable enemies. Hao Tianwang growled angrily. The Eternal Night technique also failed. Wrong. Suddenly, a voice appeared out of thin air. It's not that the Eternal Night technique failed, but that you haven't cultivated the Eternal Night technique. Now that the four symbols are gone, how can I cultivate the Eternal Night technique? Hao Tianwang said in annoyance. Let me think about it. The other party seemed to be stumped by this problem. He muttered to himself, the four symbols are spiritual stones of heaven and earth, the only spiritual stone of heaven and earth in this sky beyond heaven. Since it's the only one, then there's no second one. What else can we do? Even if the sky beyond heaven doesn't, there are other worlds. The other party changed the topic, as if hope had been rekindled. Where? The human world. The human world? Yes, the stairway to heaven in the human world is also a spiritual stone of heaven and earth. It has infinite power and is perfect as the foundation of the tower. How do you know so much about the human world? There's nothing in the boundless world that I don't know. The other party laughed boastfully. Hao Tianwang had always been very curious about this mysterious helper. What was the other party's identity and why did he help him? He had tried to figure it all out before, but after much effort, he found that it was futile. He had no choice but to give up. But one thing was for sure, the other party was very resourceful. Even he was left in the dust. He was also very curious as to why the other party didn't directly make a move. Once the other party made a move, he could completely resolve the predicament and crisis in front of him. There was no need to go through so much trouble. Hao Tianwang never thought that he would become a marionette. He thought for a long time and finally compromised. Even if he was a marionette, as long as he could achieve his goal, there would be a day when the marionette could become the master. He was only temporarily using the other party. Perhaps, the other party was also using him. Both parties had ulterior motives, but they had a tacit understanding. Let's go to the human world. All problems will be easily solved, the other party egged him on. Hao Tianwang had no other choice but to follow suit. A spatial door appeared, and with a leap, he disappeared into it. Tang Zheng's group returned to the wilderness. Everyone's morale was greatly boosted after seeing them return unscathed. They all asked what had happened. Tang Zheng gathered everyone and explained his experience. Everyone was baffled after hearing this. They were all unfamiliar with this Evernight art and had never heard of it before. Tian Chanzi tilted his head and pondered for a while. Then, he waved his hand and said, regardless of what Evernight art it is, the most important thing is to find Hao Tianwang and eliminate this great threat. Even if there is an Evernight art, it will be useless. No. The Emperor of Heaven suddenly spoke up with a frown. Hao Tianwang isn't the most important person. The person who taught him the Evernight art is the most important person. The enemy we can't see is the most dangerous. These words echoed many others. The Empyrean fairy was the first to agree with her father's judgment. The Dragon King also agreed. That makes sense. Our dragon race travels through many worlds and we don't know anything about this Evernight art. Yet, that mysterious person is well versed in this art. This is enough to prove how extraordinary he is. Little White was confused and asked doubtfully, "What's the background of that mysterious man? Why is he making an enemy out of us?" This time, everyone shook their heads, especially Tang Zheng. Looking at his experiences along the way, he really did not have a corresponding enemy. Perhaps this is a new enemy. Tang Zheng guessed. That's the only way. The others agreed. Tang Zheng took a deep breath and looked at everyone. No matter who the other party is, we must first complete the task at hand. Our army came to the realm beyond heaven to eliminate Hao Tianwang. Although he has disappeared, there is no way he can escape. Perhaps he is hiding somewhere and brewing a new conspiracy. Therefore, we must dig him out even if we have to dig 3 feet into the ground. No one objected. Immediately, the army moved out and scattered across the vast realm beyond heaven. They dug 3 feet into the ground to find Hao Tianwang's whereabouts. Chapter 1799. In the Human World. Mount Buzhou stood quietly in the depths of the innumerable great mountains. The top of the mountain was surrounded by clouds and mist, like a fairyland. Crack! A crack appeared in the sky, and Hao Tianwang's figure came out of the crack. He went through the space gate and came to the human world. The two worlds were separated. Without guidance, it was easy to get lost in the space turbulence, but Hao Tianwang succeeded at the first try. Because he had the help of the mysterious man, it seemed that any difficulty could be solved easily. Back then, it was easy for his son to travel to the ghost realm, and he succeeded at the first try. Hao Tianwang looked down at the vast land, and his eyes were full of surprise. Is this the place where the surviving member of the royal family is hiding? Hao Tianwang gnashed his teeth. In an instant, his hatred for the human world increased greatly, and he wanted to destroy the world immediately. He took a deep breath, suppressed the anger in his heart, and followed the mysterious man's instructions, swooped down and rushed straight to Mount Buzhou. When he saw Mount Buzhou, he looked suspicious. This mountain was indeed too tall and majestic, but it was far from the dark stone of heaven and earth. Could he have made a mistake? How could there be a dark stone of heaven and earth here? Hao Tianwang doubted in his heart, but he immediately left this thought behind. In his mind, the mysterious man was too mysterious and powerful. It seemed that there was nothing in the world that he couldn't do. However, Hao Tianwang occasionally wondered why the mysterious man wanted to borrow his hand since he was so powerful. If he had any purpose, why didn't he just do it directly? Hao Tianwang didn't believe that Tang Zheng could resist the mysterious man. If it's really the mysterious man who did it directly, then it's none of my business. I should feel lucky. Heavenly King Hao suppressed his complicated thoughts and focused on Mount Buzhou. He flew a few laps around Mount Buzhou and gradually found some clues. The mysterious man was right. At first glance, Mount Buzhou doesn't look very special. However, once you really observe it, you can see that it is extraordinary. Outside the dross, there is gold and jade inside. He suddenly stopped and floated at the top of the mountain. A burst of light burst out from his eyes. He put his hands together, and the air between heaven and earth instantly froze. The peak of Mount Buzhou was already covered in snow. At this moment, the cold wind also stopped, and the fluttering snowflakes froze in midair. The corners of Hao Tianwang's mouth curled up into a cold smile as he roared, "Wind, snow, ice." As soon as his voice fell, a cold wind blew, whistling through the world. Snowflakes also floated up. White snow rose from the ground, breaking away from the gravity and soaring into the sky. At the same time, the ice layer that covered the mountain also rumbled, and huge pieces of ice soared up. The ice sword is complete. Hao Tianwang made a grabbing motion in the air. The wind, snow, and ice all gathered in his palm and were firmly grasped by him. A sword hilt gradually took shape, followed by the sword body. Not long after, a glittering ice sword was forged, flashing with a soul-stirring cold light. Open! Hao Tianwang roared, and the ice sword slashed down from above. A cold light rushed out from the ice sword, and in an instant, the cold light slashed toward Mount Buzhou. Boom! Mountain rocks flew everywhere, and a hole gradually appeared at the top of the mountain. This hole quickly spread downward, and easily destroyed all the way to the foot of the mountain. Rumble! The foot of Mount Buzhou exploded, making earth-shattering noises as if there was an earthquake. A ray of white light pierced through the hole like a sharp sword, shooting straight up into the sky. At the same time, a vast and mysterious power surged out, filling the space between heaven and earth. Hao Tianwang's eyes lit up, and he laughed contentedly, "Ha ha ha, the heavens are helping me. There really is heaven and earth obsidian in Mount Buzhou." He couldn't be more familiar with this energy. It was his target. Who dares to destroy Mount Buzhou? An angry roar sounded. Hao Tianwang's laughter came to an abrupt end, and he widened his eyes in surprise, looking around for the source of the voice. "I am the mountain god of Mount Buzhou. How dare you destroy Mount Buzhou? You have evil intentions, and I'll kill you without mercy." The mountain god's voice sounded. If Tang Zheng heard this voice, he wouldn't be unfamiliar with it. He had received help from the mountain god before. Mountain god? Hao Tianwang frowned suspiciously, and asked as if he was talking to himself, "What is a mountain god?" "A mountain god is the god who protects Mount Buzhou." "Ha, god? Is there really a god in this world? You think you're scaring a 3-year-old child?" "Humph, what kind of thing dares to play tricks in front of me, Hao Tianwang?" Hao Tianwang spat disdainfully, and said coldly, "I don't care what you are. I'll destroy your body and soul first." Whoosh! The ice sword slashed down again, and this time it flew out, penetrating the crack in the mountain, and disappeared in the white light. Boom! The white light trembled, and a cracking sound came from Mount Buzhou. Rocks quickly rolled down from the top of the mountain, and not long after, Mount Buzhou actually disintegrated. Large pieces of rocks fell from Mount Buzhou, and fell to the ground. Immediately, the surroundings of Mount Buzhou seemed to have turned into craters, and each one of them was a shocking sight. Not long after, Mount Buzhou completely disintegrated, and the majestic peak turned into a pile of rubble. It was earth-shattering, and caused a large chain reaction. There was an earthquake in the 100,000 mountains, and with a rumble, cracks spread out in all directions from Mount Buzhou. However, Hao Tianwang didn't pay attention to these minor details. His attention was focused on the dazzling white light in the rubble. There was an ice sword in the middle of the white light, and it was Hao Tianwang's sword. The ice sword stopped, and the tip of the sword released a chilling light, but it still couldn't move forward. A large hand stretched out from the ground, and firmly grasped the ice sword. Heavenly King Hao's eyes lit up as he stared at the hand. He laughed in surprise and said, "Ha, it really is a heaven and earth mystic stone. I didn't expect such a huge heaven and earth mystic stone to be hidden under Mount Buzhou. The heaven and earth ore is indeed extraordinary, and has its own consciousness. What mountain god, isn't this a heaven and earth ore?" Boom! An imposing figure stood up from the white light, and his whole body released a dazzling white light. It was a stone man that looked like one of the 4 symbols. He was completely made of heaven and earth ore, and his whole body emitted a mysterious and powerful aura. If Tang Zheng saw this scene, he would definitely be taken aback. He would never have thought that the mountain god of Mount Buzhou was a heaven and earth ore, and had magical powers like the 4 symbols. He was the foundation of Mount Buzhou. The mountain god opened his eyes wide, and his eyes released a white light. He stared angrily at Hao Tianwang, and asked, "Who are you?" "Ha, I'm going to be your master soon. It's a waste for you to hide under Mount Buzhou. I'm going to take you to see a wider world. You're going to make contributions and conquer the world." Heavenly King Hao said in high spirits. Chapter 1800. The mountain god angrily roared, "In your dreams, I will never be used by you." The mountain god's whole body emitted a bright white light as it quickly grew. It was as if it was standing between heaven and earth as it turned into a giant. Boom! The air was compressed, creating bursts of explosions. The giant palm fiercely slapped towards Hao Tianwang. Hao Tianwang did not mind as he madly laughed, "The more you resist, the more powerful you are. The more powerful you are, the more valuable you are to me." Buzz! The ice sword rotated as ice fragments swirled in the air, creating an ice blood storm. The mountain god's other hand was holding the ice sword, but it was unable to resist this terrifying power. It was also rotated and twisted into a strange angle. Roar! The mountain god unwillingly roared as the giant palm slapped down and hit the ice sword. Boom! The dazzling sword light burst out and quickly exploded, turning into an ice storm that engulfed the mountain god. The omnipresent pressure gathered from all directions and fiercely pressed down on the mountain god. The mountain god continuously roared as he straightened his body. Bang! Suddenly, one of the mountain god's legs knelt down and his knee hit the ground, creating a huge pit. "Who are you?" the mountain god angrily asked. "I am your master," Hao Tianwang proudly said. His face turned cold as he shouted, "Kneel!" Bang! The other knee also hit the ground, kneeling on both knees as he stared at Hao Tianwang in fear. "Surrender!" Hao Tianwang opened his hands and a mass of black gas spread out from his palms and turned into a black line that swam towards the mountain god from all directions. It was like a poisonous snake or a chain that quickly trapped the mountain god. No matter how he struggled, he was unable to break free from these black lines. The mountain god was tied up and could only roar unwillingly, but to no avail. The black line rose up along the mountain god's tall body and directly spread to his head. The mountain god seemed to be resisting, but to no avail. He could only watch as the black line drilled into his forehead. The mountain god's struggle immediately slowed down a lot. Finally, it calmed down and quietly knelt on the ground, unable to make any more waves. Hao Tianwang was like the creator, slowly flying in front of the mountain deity. With a hook of his finger, a black line drilled into the mountain deity's eyebrows. The mountain god suddenly trembled, and his facial expression changed dramatically. A black light appeared in his eyes, and his eyes were completely filled with darkness. "From now on, you are my subordinate. We will conquer the entire world," Hao Tianwang said passionately. The mountain god was already prostrating himself on the ground, like a servant facing his master. He said respectfully, "Yes." Heavenly King Hao laughed maniacally. "In this world, who can stop me? Tang Zheng, just you wait. I'm going to kill you right away." Rumble. Suddenly, a series of loud noises rose and fell, resounding through the 100,000 mountains as if an earthquake had occurred. The mountain god rose from the ground and slowly flew up with Hao Tianwang. In the distance, many people stopped to watch. They saw an indomitable giant slowly rise into the sky and fly into the 9 heavens. That huge figure was like a mountain peak, leaving an indelible impression in the hearts of countless people. What is that? Everyone's mind was greatly shaken, and their hearts were in turmoil. Many people rushed towards the 100,000 mountains. These were the martial artists and cultivators who stayed behind. Before they even got close, they saw a space door appear in the 9 heavens. What is that? Many people saw the space door for the first time. They were shocked, speechless. It was as if a big hole opened in the sky. Before anyone could figure out what was going on, a world-destroying attractive force appeared. Whoosh! These people could not stand steadily and were sucked into the space door. Ah ah ah, screams resounded through the world one after another. The people in the 100,000 mountains were in a terrible situation. Not only the people who flew over, but also the monsters on the ground also flew towards the space door. They could not resist this force of attraction at all. The mountain gods stopped in front of the space door, and those people and monsters were sucked into the space door. The next scene was that they were spat out in an instant, turning into piles of black bones that were attached to the mountain god. The mountain god's appearance was even taller, and it emitted a chilling aura. This scene scared everyone out of their wits. They all wanted to find Tang Zheng, the backbone, but he had already gone to the heavens beyond heaven, so there was no way to inform them. Ha ha ha, the heavens beyond heaven has searched for this world for so many years, and now I've finally set foot on the land of this world. This is really a good world, and it can continuously provide me with raw materials. Hao Tianwang was proud and roared non-stop. It was like thunder rolling in the sky. The world suddenly became like the end of the world. If Yan Qingyi saw this scene, she would definitely understand that the scene of the end of the world in her prophecy was quite consistent with this scene. The heavens beyond heaven, the barbarian land. Tang Zheng paced back and forth with a cold expression. The inescapable net had been cast, and even the ruins of the city in the sky had been searched, but there was no trace of Hao Tianwang and his men. Many people guessed that his men might have all died and turned into piles of black bones. Tang Zheng did not comment because no one knew how many men Hao Tianwang had, and that tower was really too tall. He did not know how many people's bones were needed to build such a high tower. Hao Tianwang had been missing, and this was what worried him the most. He could not guess what Hao Tianwang was up to. Could it be that he has already escaped? Li Xiaotian suddenly had an idea and said. Escaped? Where can he escape to? The heavens beyond heaven is only so big. Xiao Bai disagreed. Tang Zheng's head flashed with a touch of light, as if he had been enlightened, and looked at Li Xiaotian meaningfully. Li Xiaotian winked at him playfully. You mean he escaped from the heavens beyond heaven? Li Xiaotian nodded heavily and said, yes, since we can come to the heavens beyond heaven, then he can also escape from the heavens beyond heaven. Tang Zheng suddenly realized that with Hao Tianwang's understanding of the law of space, it was entirely possible for him to open the space door and escape to other worlds. Then which world will he escape to? Tang Zheng asked curiously. The world of spirits and souls. Dizang of Goguryeo said, but immediately shook his head and denied it. The world of spirits and souls was greatly damaged, and it was impossible for it to be Hao Tianwang's target. The human world. Tian Chanzi said the result that Tang Zheng did not want to see the most. As soon as this remark came out, the others were shocked, and their faces changed greatly. After pondering for a long time, they echoed, yes, there is such a possibility, it is very possible. Tang Zheng's face changed greatly, and said, we can't sit still and wait for death. We can't find Hao Tianwang's whereabouts, and we can't stay here forever. After all, if Hao Tianwang takes drastic measures, it will cut off our retreat, and the impact will be extremely serious. Chapter 1801. The group discussed for a long time and finally reached a unanimous decision: they had to return to the human world. Whether Hao Tianwang had taken drastic measures or not, they had to take precautions. As for who would return to the human world, Tang Zheng thought for a while and came to a conclusion. The Dragon Clan would continue to stay in the Outland. The Righteous Faction, the Martial Artists, and the Sorcerer Clan would return to the human world with Tang Zheng. The Righteous Faction had long wanted to return to the human world. This was their long-cherished wish for hundreds of years. Last time, Tang Zheng's cultivation was not enough. This time, his cultivation was enough to teleport everyone. Tian Chanzi had also gathered the hearts of the Righteous Faction. He did not have to worry about them returning to the human world and causing unrest. After hearing Tang Zheng's decision, some were happy and some were sad. Xiao Bai had always wanted to spend more time with Tang Zheng, but now that Tang Zheng was going to leave, he could not help but feel a little reluctant. The righteous faction was eager and excited. Tang Zheng flew up to the 9 heavens and opened a spatial door with a wave of his hand. Everyone filed in and looked around curiously. Unfortunately, it was dark all around and they could not see anything. A door appeared in front of them and light appeared. When they stepped through the spatial door, they were shocked by the scene in front of them before they could express their excitement. What is this? Exclamations rose one after another. Everyone was at a loss. Tang Zheng was at the back. When he saw this scene through the spatial door, he was immediately attracted. His heart thumped and he had an ominous premonition. Whoosh! He rushed out as fast as he could. What's going on? He only had time to ask before he was shocked by the scene in front of him. Earth-shaking changes had taken place between heaven and earth. The violent airflow showed that the human world had undergone a drastic change. Look over there. Tian Chanzi pointed to the sky in the distance and exclaimed. Everyone looked over, and their attention was immediately drawn. A towering mountain peak appeared in the distance, as if it was about to touch the dome of heaven. That's... Tang Zheng gasped and was speechless for a long time. His heart was in turmoil and he could not calm down at all. Mount Buzhou. The Emperor of Heaven shouted. The others also saw that it was Mount Buzhou, but it was quite different from the original Mount Buzhou. There were no strange craggy peaks, but instead, there were pitch-black bones. Even though they were quite a distance apart, Tang Zheng recognized He Gu with a single glance. As if struck by lightning, he exclaimed, Hao Tianwang is here. Hao Tianwang's scheme in the realm beyond heaven had failed, and he had actually set his sights on the mortal realm. The key to the eternal night technique was that pagoda, and the key to the pagoda was the heaven and earth mystic stone. Wasn't the heaven and earth mystic stone in his Sumeru world? How did he build the tower? Mount Buzhou. Tang Zheng sucked in a breath of cold air and completely understood. Unexpectedly, there were also black stones of heaven and earth in Mount Buzhou. He thought that he had collected all the black stones of heaven and earth, but he did not know that he had overlooked the largest black stone of heaven and earth. We have to stop Hao Tianwang. Tang Zheng gave a loud roar and rushed out like a bolt of lightning. Quick, stop all of this. The others also roared and rushed toward Mount Buzhou. The sky above Mount Buzhou gradually turned black. In broad daylight, the sky had actually turned black. It was as if a dark cloud had floated over and blotted out the sun. Everyone knew that this was not a dark cloud, but rather Hao Tianwang's divine ability at work. We must not let the eternal night descend. Tang Zheng cried out loudly. Once the mortal realm turned into eternal night, then Hao Tianwang would be able to control the mortal realm. At that time, it would truly be beyond redemption. Hao Tianwang stood at the peak of Mount Buzhou. Of course, he also saw the spatial door in the distance. He also saw a large group of people walking out from it. His eyes lit up as the corners of his mouth curled up. He sneered, they've come to throw away their lives again. It'll be convenient for me to turn them into materials to build my pagoda. His pupils constricted as he stared at Tang Zheng who was charging at the front. He said with a murderous aura, Tang Zheng, it's you again. You're still haunting me. I'd like to see how you're going to stop me this time. The heaven and earth mystic stone in Mount Buzhou is even more powerful. The heavens are helping me. Do you think it'll be that easy to stop me? Hao Tianwang was full of confidence. As he saw Tang Zheng approaching, a black palm descended from the sky and ruthlessly slapped towards Tang Zheng. Boom! Tang Zheng was directly slapped into the ground. A huge pit appeared in the 100,000 mountains. When the black palm disappeared, a figure rushed into the sky. How could Tang Zheng die so easily? Hao Tianwang did not expect to kill Tang Zheng with one slap. He said proudly, this is just the appetizer. Next is the main course. Whoosh! Chains fell from the 9 heavens one after another. Before Tang Zheng could resist, the chains firmly locked onto Tang Zheng and tied him up. Ha ha ha, Tang Zheng, so what if you're in the Saint Realm? What can you do to me this time? Hao Tianwang shouted proudly. Tang Jing sneered, "Do you think you can trap me like this?" Bang, bang, bang. As soon as he finished speaking, a light flashed and the chains were all broken. Tang Zheng had a Xuanzang sword in his hand. Wherever the Xuanzang sword pointed, it was invincible. "Break!" Tang Zheng shouted. The Xuanzang sword broke through the air. With a flash of sword light, everything disappeared. Only this sword light was left between heaven and earth. A big net fell from the sky and trapped the Xuanzang sword. But it did not last long. The big net broke and the Xuanzang sword went straight in, piercing into the 9 heavens. Pfft! The darkness in the sky was torn open and the sun shone down again. Tang Zheng curled the corner of his mouth and said, "How does it feel?" Hao Tianwang was furious, "Can you stop me like this?" Hao Tianwang waved his hand and the darkness in the sky quickly expanded, covering the sky and the sun. Those who were rushing over were covered by the darkness. Whoosh! 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 These people could not stand steadily. They were covered by a huge suction force and flew quickly toward the tower. They hit the tower and were immediately swallowed by the darkness. Almost in the blink of an eye, they were turned into black bones. The tower grew taller again, as if it was really going to reach the sky. The darkness in the sky expanded a little further. More and more people could not stand steadily and flew toward the tower. Tang Zheng was furious and shouted, "How dare you do this in front of me?" He waved his hand and a black hole appeared. The strong suction force covered these people and firmly held them. The two forces fought and stabilized these people. "Save them!" Tang Zheng roared at the Emperor of Heaven and the others. They seemed to have woken up from a dream. The experts immediately took action and rescued them back to their own camp. These people were seeing Hao Tianwang for the first time, and it was also their first time seeing the Evernight art. All of them were deeply shaken. Immediately, they somewhat understood why Tang Zheng and Little White were facing Heavenly King Hao as if they were facing a great enemy. This was truly too powerful an enemy, and could not be underestimated in the slightest. Seeing that his men were temporarily safe, Tang Zheng did not give Hao Tianwang the chance to repeat the same trick. He raised his sword and charged toward Hao Tianwang. Chapter 1802. Tang Zheng raised his sword and soared into the sky. The sword light seemed to split the sky and earth, splitting the darkness into two and rushing straight to Heavenly King Hao. Heavenly King Hao stared at him and roared, "Eternal night, descend!" Swoosh! The dark light fell from the sky, and the area of the 100,000 mountains was completely plunged into darkness. The black bones on the tower were eerie and terrifying, making people shudder. "What's going on? I can't move." "Yeah, I can't move either." Cries of alarm rang out everywhere. Many people were frightened and struggled with all their might, but it was all in vain. An invisible force imprisoned them. Tang Zheng was shocked. He realized that the eternal night descent was even more powerful this time. All the dark places were under Hao Tianwang's control. Those people's cultivation could not resist this kind of magic at all. "Ha ha ha, Tang Zheng, I have to thank you for sending me so many raw materials. These people's cultivation is not bad, much stronger than those ordinary people. They can help me achieve great success sooner." Heavenly King Hao laughed maniacally. His entire body was shrouded in darkness, and he disappeared. When the hidden mystic sword slashed, the attack missed. Only Hao Tianwang's voice could be heard echoing in all directions, making people's hearts tremble. "Ah!" Screams rose one after another. It was as if a pair of dark hands were dragging people to the tower. The darkness increased people's fear. Especially the righteous people. They had not finished digesting the joy of returning to the human world, and they encountered such an unforeseen event. Their minds were in chaos. The strength of the righteous people was uneven. Many people could not resist the eternal night descent. People kept disappearing, which also increased their fear. "This can't go on." Tang Zheng shouted and roared, "Everyone, listen to my order. Unite and form a circle. Those with high cultivation will stay outside and those with low cultivation will stay inside to resist Hao Tianwang's attack. Tang Zheng had an extremely high authority among the sorcerer tribe and martial artists. As for the righteous faction, due to the lack of unity, his authority was greatly reduced. After he gave the order, everyone gathered in one place and formed a huge formation. The people with the highest cultivation were guarding the outermost layer. In an instant, the multicolored treasures shook the heavens and the earth as they attempted to tear apart the endless darkness. Heavenly King Hao's roar was deafening. Shackles fell from the sky one after another. They were like black dragons, charging into the crowd. The Emperor of Heaven and a few other experts took the lead. Sword, come! The Emperor of Heaven stretched out his hand and roared. A sword appeared out of thin air. The sword light was like moonlight, emitting a silver radiance. Sword, go! The Emperor of Heaven thrust his sword forward. With just one thrust, many sword shadows appeared in the world, interweaving into a huge sword formation. The sword formation pushed forward, and the air was torn apart. Bang bang! The chains broke, but the darkness came and came back. The chains were reforged and changed, enveloping the long sword. The sword light instantly dimmed down. The Emperor of Heaven's gaze turned cold, he chanted a few times, and the sword light rose again. Wang! With a loud sound like a thunderclap, an arrow shot out from the heaven-shocking bow and struck a chain, causing it to crack inch by inch. Li Xiaotian's eyes lit up. This was the power of the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrows. She had been practicing for a long time, and today, she had finally released her brilliance and power. Seeing this, many warriors cheered, cheering for Li Xiaotian. Wu and the rest did not dare to fall behind, they rushed out and launched a fierce counterattack. Tang Zheng was gratified, but his heart was also in his throat. He thrust his sword forward, and in that moment, the sky was torn apart, and huge cracks appeared. Tang Zheng's attention was focused on the tower, and he shouted, "Mountain God, come out!" He still remembered that the mountain god had helped him fight against a strong enemy. Hao Tianwang had caused the Buzhou mountain to become like this. How could the mountain god sit idly by and do nothing? Since he could not destroy it from the outside, he naturally wanted to awaken the mountain god. He wanted to use both methods, both inside and outside, and truly defeat Hao Tianwang. The mountain god did not respond. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that something had happened? Hao Tianwang sneered in disdain. Are you looking for the mountain god? Why isn't it reacting? Tang Zheng's face tensed up, and asked, where did it go? Hao Tianwang said proudly, it's in this tower, you can go find it yourself. With that said, a black door opened with a loud bang, standing in front of Tang Zheng. A huge suction force instantly enveloped Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's body trembled, crazily urging his martial arts, trying to resist this terrifying force. What is this? Tang Zheng scolded. Don't you want to find the mountain god? He's inside. Whoosh! Tang Zheng uncontrollably flew towards the door, but at the critical moment, Tang Zheng held on, and with a big hand, two black holes appeared, one on the left and one on the right, instantly cancelling out the suction force of the door. Hee, your martial arts is interesting, but can you really resist it? Hao Tianwang was full of confidence, suddenly appearing behind Tang Zheng, ready to launch a fatal blow. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up, the corner of his mouth hooked up into a sneer, and said, You're finally here. Heavenly King Hao slapped out with his palm, and a gigantic black palm flew out from his palm. It was as if Mount Tai was pressing down on him, directly pressing down on Tang Zheng's back, as if it was going to break his spine. Hao Tianwang did not care at all, as if he was about to push Tang Zheng through the door. Suddenly, a loud sound rang out. A palm landed on his back first, and the other party had actually evaded his intuition. Who is it? Hao Tianwang staggered forward, hurriedly turned his head, and loudly asked. A person appeared, impressively it was Tang Zheng. Hao Tianwang's heart trembled, and from the corner of his eyes, he saw another Tang Zheng, immediately, as if he was struck by lightning, and asked, "Why are there two Tang Zheng? What do you think?" Tang Zheng sneered. Hao Tianwang was aghast, and suddenly realized, "This is not you, but you're Yuanying, right? You can actually create a doppelganger, and let Yuanying leave your body." Hao Tianwang was really shocked by this discovery. He also had his own primordial spirit, but it was limited to the Zifu, and he could not let Yuanying leave his body. He was not sure what kind of lethality Yuanying would have after leaving the body, but one thing was without a doubt, and that was the opponent's fighting strength would greatly increase. Hao Tianwang did not have time to think carefully, and could only urge his martial arts to fight back. The Yuanying doppelganger was like a hot knife through butter, and with one palm, it smashed Hao Tianwang's counterattack, and the other palm hit Hao Tianwang's back. Puff! Hao Tianwang spat out a mouthful of blood, and staggered forward. Tang Zheng's eyes were sharp, and he quickly tried to give Hao Tianwang the finishing blow, but when the hidden profound sword touched Hao Tianwang's body, Hao Tianwang suddenly disappeared without a trace. Tang Zheng looked around, but other than the boundless darkness, there was no trace of Hao Tianwang. Where is he? Tang Zheng was bewildered, and looked at Yuanying in horror. When he escaped to the heaven realm, he was unwilling to come out. How did he come out this time? Yuanying looked at Tang Zheng indifferently, and understood his thoughts, and said, "Let's talk about our matters later, and deal with Hao Tianwang first. He has merged into the darkness, and we must find him, otherwise, he will destroy the world." Chapter 1803. You're finally willing to show yourself. I thought you'd hide in the heaven realm for the rest of your life. Tang Zheng looked at Yuanying and said coldly. Yuanying was not under his control, which made him very depressed. After all, Yuanying was a part of his body, but in the end, it went against him. No one could accept this result. How could Yuanying not know Tang Zheng's thoughts? She said indifferently, "Do you want to capture me or deal with Hao Tianwang? Choose for yourself." Tang Zheng snorted and said, "We'll settle our accounts later. Let's deal with Hao Tianwang first." Yuanying smiled faintly, not surprised at all, and said, "Then let's work together. Don't dawdle." Whoosh! Yuanying rushed out, and the darkness immediately swarmed over, surrounding Yuanying. Yuanying immediately disappeared. The others looked at the two identical Tang Zheng, and all of them widened their eyes in disbelief. Everyone, stay calm and defeat the enemy. Everyone was greatly encouraged. Two Tang Zheng were always stronger than one. This time, Hao Tianwang would definitely lose. Boom boom boom. Earth-shattering sounds came from the darkness. The shock waves fell like thunder, tearing the earth apart. The 100,000 mountains became a scene of devastation, as if the end of the world had arrived. "I'm coming!" Tang Zheng roared and also joined the battle. He rushed into the darkness and saw Yuanying and Hao Tianwang fighting fiercely. Yuanying and Tang Zheng's cultivation were the same. The two experts of the Saint Realm attacked together. Even if Hao Tianwang had the magical power of eternal night descent, he gradually showed signs of weakness. Hao Tianwang was unwilling to lose and roared angrily. Pooh! The hidden profound sword slashed his chest, and a huge wound appeared on his left and right. It was a shocking sight. Hao Tianwang let out a few heart-wrenching screams. He fought and retreated. The tower was on the verge of collapse, as if it could collapse at any time. The others were safe. Hao Tianwang could not multitask. He could only use all his strength to deal with Tang Zheng and Yuanying. Tang Zheng and Yuanying were overjoyed. They took advantage of the victory and pursued. Bang! Yuanying's palm hit Hao Tianwang and sent him flying into the tower. The tower shook violently, as if it was about to collapse. Suddenly, a surge of energy descended from the sky and landed on Heavenly King Hao's body. Heavenly King Hao started to tremble violently. Tang Zheng and the Yuanying stopped their attacks and looked at this scene in confusion. When they looked up again, the sky was empty and there was no one else. However, the two of them were keenly aware of how powerful this energy was. Who is it? Yuanying asked in a low voice. Tang Zheng shook his head and said, I don't know. Suddenly, his pupils shrank. He pointed at Hao Tianwang and exclaimed, Look! Heavenly King Hao and the tower gradually merged into one. Oh no, someone is helping him. Yuanying shouted anxiously, we have to stop him. Whoosh! The hidden profound sword slashed out fiercely. Hao Tianwang's light flashed. He completely merged with the tower and disappeared. The hidden profound sword slashed the tower. Sparks flew, but it did not hurt Hao Tianwang. Ha ha ha! A burst of wild laughter came from the top of the tower. Tang Zheng and Yuanying looked up and saw Heavenly King Hao standing majestically at the top of the tower. His previous dejection was swept away, and his aura had undergone an earth-shattering change. He has broken through to the Saint Realm. The two of them could not believe it. In the blink of an eye, Hao Tianwang had changed so much that he broke through the most difficult line. How did you do it? Hao Tianwang laughed wildly and said, You have someone to help you. Am I alone? Ha ha ha, my helper is more powerful than you. You're dead. Tang Zheng and Yuanying looked at each other and thought of the same thing. They asked, Is it the energy just now? That's right, Heavenly King Hao said proudly. Tang Zheng quickly thought about it. Who else in this world had this kind of strength that could actually force a person to break through the most difficult boundary? Even Tang Zheng could not do it. A light flashed in his mind. Tang Zheng seemed to wake up from a dream and exclaimed, It's the way of heaven, isn't it? The way of heaven? Hao Tianwang frowned. It seemed that this was the first time he had heard of these two words. Yuanying and Tang Zheng had the same point of view and agreed, it must be the way of heaven. He hasn't given up and is mixed up with Hao Tianwang. He taught you the descent of eternal night ability, right? I don't know who he is, but seeing that all of you agree and are facing a great enemy, it must be him. Way of heaven, my good helper, thank you. Hao Tianwang shouted to the sky. The sky was silent. There was no response. Tang Zheng and Yuanying felt the pressure double. They had always thought that it was enough to deal with Hao Tianwang. They never thought that they had thought too simply. The way of heaven had already secretly made a move. He was their biggest enemy. It was a pity that the way of heaven had no way to find him. Some of the others knew a little about the way of heaven. When they heard this, they were already pale with fright. It turned out that the scales of victory were not tilted to their side. There was still a bitter battle waiting for them. Tang Zheng, so what if it's the way of heaven? Since he wants to destroy this world, then we will resist to the end. We want to see how powerful he is. Someone was filled with righteous indignation. He was not frightened by the way of heaven. Tang Zheng and Yuanying's morale was greatly boosted. That makes sense. Let's fight. Yuanying rushed out. Tang Zheng, however, was not in a hurry to charge forward. He pointed his finger towards the sky, causing specks of light to appear in the dark sky. Starlight. The darkness could not cover up all the starlight. Celestial chess. Someone shouted, unable to hide his excitement. The power of the celestial chess was well known. Who was stronger between the celestial chess and the descent of eternal night? The starlight flickered more and more fiercely. A lot of light was restored between heaven and earth. Wu and Li Xiaotian had already set up the heavenly chess in Dianan. However, the two of them were unable to fully use the heavenly chess. This made it convenient for Tang Zheng. The mighty power of the stars descended from the sky and clashed with the power of darkness. Immediately, ripples appeared in the sky, and the sky became like the surface of water, completely in the shape of ripples. Everyone's bodies relaxed. The imprisonment of the darkness disappeared. Immediately, it attracted a burst of cheers. What's going on? Hao Tianwang ignored the attack of Yuanying. He raised his head and looked at the sky. He could not believe his eyes. This was a kind of energy that he had never seen before. It made him tremble in fear. This is the heavenly chess. Tang Zheng replied. Heavenly chess. Hao Tianwang was confused, but he did not dare to underestimate it. He did not see any movement, but the tower quickly grew taller and soared into the sky with him. It was as if it wanted to break through the power of the stars. Tang Zheng and Yuanying followed like shadows and attacked together. Boom! 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 The power of darkness and the power of the stars clashed. The sky shook and tore open. It was as if the sky was about to collapse. Chapter 1804. Under the celestial chess, the huge 100,000 mountains was completely destroyed by the impact of the power of the stars and the power of darkness. There was not a single undamaged plant in the ruins. They were all cut off from the roots. The ground was like the surface of the moon. There were many holes, some so deep that the bottom could not be seen. It was like a sinkhole. The river was completely cut off and changed. It was beyond recognition. The primeval forest of Xanadu was completely destroyed. Because almost no one lived in the 100,000 mountains. No one died because of this, but it was still a disaster. Many creatures suffered unexpected disasters. Dianan was on the edge of the 100,000 mountains. It was also in danger. Fortunately, Dianan was protected by the celestial chess. It still had some self-protection power, so it would not immediately become like the 100,000 mountains. But if the battle continued, Dianan might not be spared. At that time, who knew how many innocent people would die? Tang Zheng was very clear about this. After he saw the scene of the confrontation between the power of darkness and the power of stars, he immediately understood that Hao Tianwang, who had greatly increased his power, was even more terrifying. He could really threaten the survival of the human world. He glanced at Yuanying. With just a glance, the two of them immediately connected. Yuanying said resolutely, "You and I can only really end all of this if we merge." Tang Zheng knew that there was definitely danger. Yuanying already had her own consciousness. Tang Zheng could not control her. If the two of them merged, he was not completely sure whether Yuanying would do anything. But for the survival of the human race, he had to accept this. The tower was almost at the top of the sky. The sky was close at hand. Hao Tianwang stood on the tower. His figure gradually became blurred. He seemed to be merging with the tower. He was the tower, Mount Buzhou. The sky was getting darker and darker. The area was rapidly expanding. Once the sky was completely dark and the eternal night descended, it would be even more troublesome. Ha ha ha, Tang Zheng, so what if you have Yuanying's doppelganger? I have the eternal night. How can your little magical power be my opponent? Hao Tianwang was immensely proud of himself. His arrogant laughter spread far and wide in the sky. It was like a clap of thunder that resounded throughout the entire world. At this moment, everyone in the world heard this voice. That thick murderous aura and unchallengeable aura were intimidating. Thump. Many people directly knelt on the ground, suppressed by this aura to the point where they couldn't even lift their heads and breathe. Everyone looked up at the sky. Although it was too far away and many people couldn't see it, there were people who could, and those were the armies of the various countries. They realized the severity of the situation. Many countries directly launched missiles and even nuclear bombs. One after another, huge warheads flew over. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank as he saw the approaching warhead. That might not be useful. Tang Zheng sighed inwardly. Hao Tianwang had never seen a warhead before, so he didn't know what it was. However, he instinctively knew that it was nothing good. He waved his hand, and a dark energy enveloped the warheads. Boom! The warheads exploded, and a huge shockwave spread out in all directions. The tower bore the brunt of the impact and shook violently a few times. Hao Tianwang immediately understood that these warheads contained powerful energy. Humph, you want to stop me with this thing? He curled his lips in disdain. Then, he came up with a plan and said, let's go there. With a wave of his sleeve, the dark energy enveloped the warheads and they flew straight to Dianan. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank as he roared, "Shameless, you want to destroy Dianan." Whoosh! 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 The warheads exploded high in the sky. Mushrooms rose into the air like huge mushrooms, growing vigorously in the sky like bamboo shoots after the rain. When the countries saw this scene, they were completely stunned. Even the most powerful weapons could not do anything to Hao Tianwang. Was the end of the world really coming? However, when they saw Tang Zheng's figure, they had a glimmer of hope again. They pinned all their hopes on Tang Zheng and prayed for him silently, hoping that he could create a miracle and save the world from the crisis of destruction. At this moment, no one doubted Tang Zheng anymore. They all regarded him as their savior. "We can't wait any longer. Merge!" Tang Zheng no longer hesitated and roared at Yuanying. The two of them rushed to each other from two directions. In the blink of an eye, the two of them merged into one. Suddenly, a dazzling light was emitted from Tang Zheng's body. His aura underwent an earth-shattering change and soared in a straight line. Hao Tianwang's face suddenly changed when he saw this scene. With a whoosh, his figure disappeared and completely merged with the tower. "Go to hell, Tang Zheng." Hao Tianwang's voice exploded like rolling thunder. A pitch-black giant hand reached out from the tower and grabbed at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng held the air with both hands. The hidden sword immediately appeared in his hand. The hidden sword flew with the wind and in the blink of an eye, it became a huge sword that crossed the sky. At this moment, everyone stared at the huge sword. The power of the stars fell from the sky and gathered on the hidden sword. Suddenly, streaks of starlight appeared on the sword. The hidden sword seemed to have turned into the Milky Way. Streaks of starlight flickered like mysterious stars. "Break!" Tang Zheng roared. The hidden sword fell from the sky. It was very slow, but with every drop, its aura became stronger. When the hidden sword fell on the tower, the power and aura of the hidden sword were condensed to the peak. It was like a hot knife through butter. At this moment, there was no sound in the world. Because all sound was completely covered by the sound of this attack. Dazzling light burst. Everyone closed their eyes, unable to look directly at the scene. Boom! 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 Countless monitoring devices were completely destroyed. The images disappeared. Darkness spread from the tower and completely swallowed the light of the hidden sword. Everyone opened their eyes again and saw that the sky was only left with endless darkness. No one knew what was going on. Everyone was on tenterhooks. Their hearts seemed to have fallen into a bottomless abyss. They all held their breaths. How was Tang Zheng? Did he win or lose? They could not accept Tang Zheng's failure. The world could not accept Tang Zheng's failure. He was the world's last line of defense. If he was defeated, then the world was truly finished. Looking at the thick darkness that could not be dispersed, many people's hearts became more and more desperate. The flame of hope was gradually extinguished. At this moment, the world was watching. What happened in the darkness, what the result was, no one could say for sure. No one knew when the result would be. The only thing they could do was wait. Chapter 1805. The darkness gradually receded, as if the dark clouds that had shrouded everyone's hearts were gradually dispersing. Big and small eyes stared at the sky without blinking. Swoosh! A sword light pierced through the darkness and appeared in everyone's vision. Oh, oh, oh! The cheers were earth-shattering and resounding throughout the universe. Every world, every language, and every country cheered from the bottom of their hearts. The Emperor of Heaven and the others waved their arms excitedly. They were closer than the others and could better understand the tragedy and danger of this battle. They cared more about Tang Zheng's life than the others, not only because he was the savior, but also because he was everyone's friend and family. Dizang of Goguryeo chanted the name of Buddha, solemnly, and recited the Ksitigarbha Sutra, saying, "Tang Zheng has indeed lived up to our expectations." When I taught him the Ksitigarbha Sutra, it was the wisest decision. Fang Shishir and Yi Dingdang's eyes were full of splendor as they silently cheered for their beloved. The darkness completely dissipated, and everything was completely revealed. Immediately, many people gasped and exclaimed in disbelief. The tower disappeared. In its place was Mount Buzhou. Mount Buzhou appeared again, but it was taller, as if it had taken off its outer layer and revealed its true appearance. The cheers continued until Hao Tianwang's voice rang out again, this time from Mount Buzhou. Tang Zheng, you deserve to die. You actually broke my divine ability. Tang Zheng stood in the air, holding the hidden sword in his hand. The hidden sword had returned to its original appearance, and he stared at Mount Buzhou with a burning gaze. Only he knew the danger and difficulty of that attack. He and Yuanying became one, and their power increased exponentially, almost reaching the peak of the Saint Realm. That feeling was indescribably mysterious. The state of being one with heaven and man as one with the sword made him forget to go back and reminisce for a long time. However, although this attack broke Hao Tianwang's magic, it did not really kill him. Hao Tianwang's cultivation was in the Saint Realm, and he had become one with Mount Buzhou, almost reaching the realm of immortality. Tang Zheng was very clear that it was easier said than done to truly kill him. He gazed at Mount Buzhou with a fluctuating expression. Hao Tianwang, your evernight descent is ineffective. What else can you do? Hao Tianwang said, then what can you do to me? Tang Zheng's expression kept changing. It was indeed as Hao Tianwang had said. If he couldn't really kill Hao Tianwang, then everything was just empty talk. Unless you hide in Mount Buzhou like a coward for the rest of your life, I will definitely kill you. Tang Zheng said murderously. Ha, you want to use reverse psychology, but I won't fall for it. I won't show myself. Hao Tianwang was very clear about his own situation. It seemed that he would not leave Buzhou Mountain even if he was beaten to death. Tang Zheng was at his wit's end and could only gnash his teeth in hatred. When the others heard this, they flew into a rage and accused Hao Tianwang of being shameless. Hao Tianwang, on the other hand, was proud of himself. He did not put these people in his eyes at all. Boom! A loud sound came from the sky and immediately attracted everyone's attention. Everyone's heart trembled. Could it be that there was a new unforeseen event? One Hao Tianwang was enough for everyone to deal with. If a new enemy appeared, then the world would really be in danger. A vague figure appeared above the 9 heavens. Shadows flickered as a huge shadow appeared. It was as if a huge monster was descending from the sky. No, it came from another world. What is that? Many people cried out in alarm. They had never seen such a huge monster before. It was like another sky that completely covered their line of sight. Tang Zheng's pupils shrunk and then suddenly lit up. This was because he recognized what this was. Kunpeng. This was actually a kunpeng. It passed through the spatial door and arrived in this world. Hao Tianwang, where do you think you're going? A thunderous roar came from the back of the kunpeng. Then, a group of people rushed down. However, when they saw everything around them, they were at a loss. This was because they did not see Hao Tianwang's figure at all. Tang Zheng looked at them in surprise and asked, Xiao Bai, why are you guys here? This group of people was naturally Xiao Bai and his subordinates, as well as the 4 symbols. Xiao Bai said indignantly, Master, the kunpeng sensed the movement in this world. We guessed that Hao Tianwang must have come. That's why we chased him here, hoping to completely eliminate Hao Tianwang. Where is he? Where is he? Xiao Bai looked around and still did not see Hao Tianwang. He could not help but feel suspicious. Tang Zheng nodded in understanding. He looked deeply at the kunpeng and said, Did the kunpeng bring you through the spatial door? With Xiao Bai's cultivation, he was temporarily unable to bring so many people through the spatial door. As for the other people in the sky beyond sky, they did not have the ability to do so. Xiao Bai seemed to have discovered a new continent. He pointed at the Kuanpeng and said excitedly, "Yes, I also just found out that the Kuanpeng has this ability. If I had known earlier, we would have been able to freely travel between the two worlds." Currently, they had to rely on Tang Zheng's ability to travel. Now that they had the Kuanpeng, it was indeed much more convenient. Tang Zheng sighed, as expected of the Kuanpeng. "It's really magical. Master, where's Hao Tianwang? Today, I want to fight him to the death. If he doesn't die, then I die. He caused our royal family to be destroyed and suffered a calamity. This hatred, I must take revenge." Xiao Bai's killing intense sword. 2 balls of flames appeared in his eyes. His body was emitting a blazing aura. Before Tang Zheng could answer, Hao Tianwang's voice sounded. "Little brat, back then, your parents were no match for me. They either died or fled. What makes you think you're my match? Not to mention now, you couldn't kill me in the past. Not to mention now, I'm already in the Saint Realm." Ah, as soon as these words came out, there were exclamations everywhere. Some of Xiao Bai's subordinates knew what the Saint Realm was. They were immediately frightened by these words. The Saint Realm was unattainable for them. It was too high and too magical. Hao Tianwang had reached this realm. Didn't this mean that there was no hope for revenge? Xiao Bai's cheeks were red. He gritted his teeth and said, "The hatred of killing my father is irreconcilable. Even if I die, I will take revenge." Tang Zheng understood Xiao Bai's feelings. He patted him on the shoulder and comforted him, "Don't get too excited. He's actually not that powerful. Now that he's hiding in Mount Buzhou, he's like a coward. As long as he shows himself, we'll definitely find a way to kill him." Xiao Bai understood what he was implying and asked, "What if he's a coward all the time? After all, he's not a gentleman. He's a complete villain." Tang Zheng rubbed his eyebrows. This was the situation he was most worried about. He couldn't always guard in front of Mount Buzhou. He didn't have the time and energy to fight a protracted battle with Hao Tianwang. One moment of carelessness, Hao Tianwang would escape. If Hao Tianwang escaped, it wouldn't be so easy to find him again. Everything would be in vain. The human world wasn't safe. Instead, there were greater dangers. Chapter 1806. Many pairs of eyes stared at Mount Buzhou, racking their brains on how to break Hao Tianwang's invincible Vajra body. Suddenly, someone leaped out and stared at Mount Buzhou with blazing eyes. "Let me try. For symbols." Many pairs of eyes focused on him, unable to hide their suspicions. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. The heaven and earth mystic stone is the same as the 4 symbols. They are intrinsically connected. He might really have a way. Everyone was shocked at these words. They stared at the 4 symbols and asked, "For symbols, do you really have a way to break through Mount Buzhou's defenses?" The 4 symbols didn't boast. He said in a deep voice, "Let's try." Tang Zheng made the final decision and said, "Okay, then let's give it a try." Bang, bang, bang. The 4 symbols flew through the air. The air beneath his feet trembled violently with every step he took. It was as though it was boiling, causing ripples in the air. His aura was terrifying. Hao Tianwang witnessed all this. His voice deepened as though it had been squeezed out from a crack in a rock. "A mere 4 symbols, you want to ruin my plans? Dream on." The 4 symbols was unmoved. He said, "Heavenly King Hao, the pain you inflicted on me last time, I will return it to you today." The 4 symbols had once been used as the foundation of the tower and suffered humiliation and pain. Now that he finally had a chance to avenge himself, he naturally wouldn't miss this great opportunity. Hao Tianwang snorted. "I was helping you, but you didn't appreciate it. This time, I'll destroy you and let you know the consequences of going against me." Boom! With a loud bang, a huge rock shot out from Mount Buzhou. It was like a meteorite from outer space, filled with endless power and speed. Both sides clashed. The 4 symbols didn't retreat at all. He soared into the sky and collided with the meteorite-like boulder. With a boom, the boulder exploded, but the four symbols was unharmed. In an instant, they arrived in front of Mount Buzhou. Swoosh! He punched out. The air trembled, leaving behind a series of fist shadows. With a loud boom, the four symbols' fists struck Mount Buzhou. The mountain rocks shattered, but the four symbols was unscathed. You think that's enough to hurt me? Hao Tianwang laughed wildly in disdain. With a flash of light, more rocks grew on Mount Buzhou, filling up the damaged areas. The pupils of the four symbols shrank. They understood that they couldn't harm the other party's foundation. Light flickered all over their bodies, and they rapidly grew taller and bigger at a speed visible to the naked eye. In an instant, he became as tall as Mount Buzhou. In front of these two giants, everyone else became incomparably small. Hao Tianwang, you rely on the heaven and earth mystic stone in Mount Buzhou. Without it, what can you do? The four symbols hit the nail on the head. Hao Tianwang flew into a rage and said, so what? You can't do anything to me either. The four beasts snorted angrily and directly attacked. Immediately, the two colossal beings fought fiercely together, shaking heaven and earth. The 100,000 mountains experienced another round of great battle, and completely turned into ruins. Boom! The four giant figures fell from the sky and hit the ground. It was as if there was an earthquake. The earth trembled incessantly, and cracks spread out, turning into bottomless canyons. Ah! Cries of surprise rang out everywhere. Everyone was full of hope that the four symbols could create a miracle, but they didn't expect this result. Could it be that Hao Tianwang was really so powerful that there was no way to destroy him? The four symbols rapidly shrank back to their original size. They charged forward without any regard for their own safety, accumulating power and preparing to attack Hao Tianwang again. Tang Zheng saw the opportunity and hurriedly stopped them. Wait a moment. The four symbols had no choice but to stop and say, Master, my battle with him isn't over yet. I still have the strength to fight. Tang Zheng naturally knew this, but he also understood that the four symbols were no match for Hao Tianwang. After all, there was a big gap between their cultivation and strength. However, the conversation between the four symbols and Hao Tianwang inspired him. He had a bright idea and said, you guys are of the same origin as the Xian heaven and earth. Since Hao Tianwang relies on the Xian heaven and earth stone in Mount Buzhou, then I'll also give you a portion of the Xian heaven and earth stone. Will there be a way to help you? This question made the four symbols overjoyed. They didn't even need to think and hurriedly said, this is a good idea. It will definitely help me. Then what are you waiting for? Sumeru world flashed, and pieces of Xian heaven stone flew out, flying directly in front of the four symbols. This is the Xian heaven stone used to build the stairway to heaven. The four symbols asked. Exactly. The four symbols was overjoyed. The Xian heaven stone formed a circle with the four symbols in the center. The Xian heaven stone emitted a dazzling light, bathing the four symbols in it. Xian heaven stone. Hao Tianwang cried out in shock, looking at the pieces of Xian heaven stone in disbelief. The four symbols was currently merging with them. Once the merger was successful, their strength would definitely increase by leaps and bounds. How preposterous! Heavenly King Hao flew into a rage, and his attacks immediately swept over like a tidal wave. Don't even think of interrupting. The Emperor of Heaven, the Dragon King, and the others blocked one after another, trying to intercept Hao Tianwang. Hao Tianwang was a colossus, and his attacks were extremely sharp and overbearing. It was as if he had entered a no-man's land, and he sent his opponents flying one by one. A few experts formed a strong camp, and gradually slowed down Hao Tianwang's footsteps. Hao Tianwang looked at the four symbols and the Xian heaven stone that was close at hand, but he could only sigh and feel powerless. There was nothing he could do. The light of a piece of Xian heaven stone dimmed, and with a bang, it exploded into pieces. Immediately after, the light of the other Xian heaven stones also dimmed one after another, and they exploded into pieces. The four symbols' body shone brightly, and his aura was like a rainbow. He gradually became taller and taller, and in an instant, he stood upright, staring at Hao Tianwang like a torch. Hao Tianwang, let's fight again. Boom! He took a step forward and landed on the ground. Immediately, the mountains and earth shook, and he charged at Hao Tianwang without hesitation. All of you, get out of the way. The four symbols waved his giant hand, and a majestic force pushed the Emperor of Heaven, the Dragon King, and the others to the side, but did not harm them. Hao Tianwang and the four symbols faced each other again. Looking at the four symbols with completely different auras, Hao Tianwang was unable to restrain his anger, and shouted, Tang Zheng, all of this is because of you. You actually hid the Xian Heaven stones, and let the four symbols benefit for nothing. I will take back all the Xian Heaven stones, and then my descent of eternal night will be able to achieve great success. Don't boast too early, I want to see who will take whose Xian Heaven stones. The four symbols roared, and their fists rushed over. This time, it was completely different from before, and their aura and strength had undergone an earth-shattering change. Hao Tianwang only took one look, and his heart trembled violently, but he was very clear that there was no way he could retreat. The battle between the two sides started again, and everyone retreated far away at the same time. Other than Tang Zheng, no one could get involved in this battle. What was called an eye-opener, this was called. This was simply beyond their imagination, so there was actually such an intense battle in this world. The elder ancestor had seen the most prosperous period of the Beyond Heaven, but he had never seen such a scene, and his heart was shaken violently. Chapter 1807. The fierce battle between the four symbols and Hao Tianwang was earth-shattering. Rocks flew everywhere. Tang Zheng did not rush to help. Instead, he watched with bright eyes. If Hao Tianwang showed any weakness, he would definitely give him a fatal blow. Boom, 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 the rocks of Mount Buzhou did not even have time to grow before the four symbols' fists smashed them into pieces. Hao Tianwang gradually retreated. It seemed that he was no match for the four symbols. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up. It did not seem like Hao Tianwang was pretending to be weak. Instead, it seemed that he was no match for the four symbols. The dark stone of heaven and earth is indeed extraordinary. Once the four symbols fuse, their power increases greatly. Their combat power has a qualitative leap. This did not mean that the four symbols had reached the Saint Realm. Mount Buzhou and the four symbols were of the same origin. Hao Tianwang hid in Mount Buzhou, but he could not fully utilize the combat power of Mount Buzhou. Instead, his own power was limited. After all, Mount Buzhou was not his body, but the four symbols were different. He was using his own body to fight. Their combat power could be imagined. However, Hao Tianwang had an advantage. He had an almost indestructible body. As long as there was no way to break through the defense of Mount Buzhou, he would be safe. No matter how fierce the attack was, he would be able to survive. It was precisely because of this that Tang Zheng could not do anything to him. The four symbols seemed to be changing everything. The four symbols punched out. A huge rock peeled off from the mountain, and a dazzling light burst out from it. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up. He locked onto the light and shouted, "The dark stone of heaven and earth." The four symbols also saw this scene and were overjoyed. This meant that they had reached the core of Mount Buzhou. Once the dark stone of heaven and earth was destroyed, the defense of Mount Buzhou would naturally collapse. Boom! His fist landed on this piece of heaven and earth obsidian, and a huge force rebounded. The force of the rebound was the same as the strength of the four symbols. The four symbols flew backward in a rather embarrassing manner. Tang Zheng felt a chill in his heart and a flash of inspiration came to him. He said, "The heaven and earth obsidian is indestructible and has the power to protect itself. The four symbols cannot be defeated by force, only by intelligence." The four symbols also understood this point. Just as he was about to attack again, he saw a huge rock grow out, sealing the heaven-earth mystic stone. Hao Tianwang snorted and laughed wildly, "Ha ha ha, you want to defeat me with this little trick. Dream on. The 4 divine beasts snorted angrily. They roared unwillingly and rushed forward again. Boom! Boom! More rocks fell, and Hao Tianwang was forced to retreat again and again. The situation was becoming more and more obvious. You're really a dogskin plaster, pestering me endlessly. Hao Tianwang was enraged, but he was hiding in Mount Buzhou, so his attack power was reduced. When his attack landed on the 4 elephants, they really took a few steps back, but it didn't hurt them at all. As a result, the two people's situations had completely different results and huge changes. The more the 4 symbols fought, the braver they became. With a boom, they broke through the last layer of rocks, revealing the heaven and earth mystic stone. The light rushed into the sky. The 4 symbols slapped over without any strength. When it landed on the heaven and earth mystic stone, he circulated his power and a dazzling light immediately enveloped him. Hao Tianwang was shocked as he understood the 4 symbols' intention. He shouted loudly, "You actually dare to do this, die!" Boom! A huge rock smashed into the 4 symbols. The 4 symbols' body shook violently, but they didn't retreat at all. On the contrary, his footsteps were very steady. When Mount Buzhou flew backward, he followed like a shadow and didn't give the other party a chance to escape. The 4 symbols and Mount Buzhou were firmly stuck together. Boom! 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 The 4 symbols flickered with light again and again, but they didn't retreat. The light from the heaven and earth mystic stone quickly merged into his body to replenish his consumption. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up and he was overjoyed. He said, "For symbols, good job, I'll lend you a hand." The 4 symbols method hit the key point. As long as the 4 symbols didn't leave the heaven and earth mystic stone, they could continuously absorb the energy of the heaven and earth mystic stone. When the energy of the heaven and earth mystic stone was completely absorbed by the 4 symbols, Mount Buzhou would naturally collapse. Hao Tianwang's defense would collapse without him attacking, so he had to face Tang Jing directly. Hao Tianwang was also clear about this, so he panicked and kept attacking the 4 symbols. However, the 4 symbols didn't retreat at all, as if they weren't afraid of death. Tang Jing flew to the top of the 4 symbols' head and looked at the huge rocks coming at him. Swoosh! 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 The hidden mystic sword flew up and rays of sword light filled the sky. Bang! 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 The rocks broke into pieces. Under the hidden mystic sword, there was no way to escape. The 4 symbols breathed a sigh of relief and absorbed the light of the heaven and earth mystic stone wholeheartedly. Not long after, Hao Tianwang's attacks weakened, and the power of those rocks decreased sharply. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up, and he said, "For symbols, we're about to succeed." "Hold on." The 4 symbols replied with full vigor, "Yes, master." Its eyes were full of extraordinary splendor, full of determination. "No!" Heavenly King Hao roared unwillingly. Victory was in his grasp, but he was forced to defend passively. Now, he was about to fail to even let go, which meant that he was completely defeated. "You want to absorb my energy, so I'll take you down with me." Hao Tianwang roared. The 2 huge rocks were like 2 arms, directly hugging the 4 symbols. Tang Zheng's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He raised his hand and brought down the sword. One of the arms was already broken, but the other avoided the attack of the hidden mystic sword and firmly hugged the 4 symbols. The 4 symbols shook fiercely and stuck closely to the heaven and earth mystic stone, firmly unable to be separated. However, the 4 symbols did not have time to be happy, because a strong energy rushed into his body. Immediately, he was like an inflated balloon. "Ah!" The 4 symbols screamed and tried to retreat. However, that arm firmly suppressed him, so he could not even take a step back. "You don't want the energy of the heaven and earth mystic stone? I'll give it all to you, take it, ha ha ha." Hao Tianwang laughed sinisterly, pleased with himself. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank. How could he not understand Hao Tianwang's intention? In the early years, he used this move to deal with Qin Shi Huang in the ancient tomb. Then, he could turn danger into safety and defeat the strong as the weak. There was a huge amount of heaven and earth mystic stone in Mount Buzhou. When Hao Tianwang mobilized all the energy and rushed into the four symbols' bodies, it was like a flood, attacking the four symbols' bodies. The four symbols could continuously absorb the energy of the heaven and earth mystic stone, but he could not accept so much energy in an instant. Therefore, he was in imminent danger. Streaks of dazzling light burst out from the four symbols' body. His body became full of holes, as if he was about to explode from the energy. Four symbols. Tang Zheng turned pale with fright and shouted loudly. Master, I can't hold on any longer. Chapter 1808. The four symbols were in imminent danger. Everyone saw this and felt anxious, but they had no way to help him out. How could Tang Zheng sit by and do nothing? With a loud roar, he charged over without a care for his own safety. A majestic energy rushed out from the four symbols. This was the energy contained in the black stone of heaven and earth. Tang Zheng trembled. This little bit of energy was already enough to make his heart waver. If all the energy rushed into his body, one could imagine the feeling. It was hard to imagine how much pain the four symbols had to endure. Immediately, his heart sank into a bottomless abyss. For symbols, don't worry, I'll definitely think of a way to save you. Tang Zheng shouted loudly. He ignored that terrifying energy and approached the four symbols with difficulty step by step as if he was going against the current. Tang Zheng, you're courting death, Hao Tianwang roared. However, since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Boom! With a loud sound, a large hand drilled out from Mount Buzhou. A huge figure appeared, shrouded in dazzling light. The mountain god. The mountain god was full of killing intent, like a killing god that had walked out from hell. Roar! The mountain deity roared and unexpectedly exploded. It also completely died, turning into a wave of world-destroying energy that rushed towards the four symbols. Crack, crack, crack. A strange sound came from the four symbols' body. The four symbols shook violently, as if they could fall apart at any time. Tang Zheng bore the brunt of this and couldn't escape from this terrifying energy. His face became especially pale. Originally, Hao Tianwang didn't plan to pour out the energy of the black stone of heaven and earth. After all, it was extremely valuable to him. However, at this juncture, if he didn't do so, Tang Zheng's life might not be in danger. He had no choice but to do so. Not only the four symbols, but even Tang Zheng could be annihilated. In order to completely destroy this powerful enemy, he could only fight. As long as the four symbols and Tang Zheng were eliminated, the others would be nothing to be afraid of. This world would truly belong to him. Go to hell! Hao Tianwang roared, his eyes full of madness and killing intent. Boom! A ball of dazzling light shone, just like the explosion of the sun. The dazzling light almost blinded everyone's eyes. Everyone subconsciously closed their eyes, only to hear a rumbling sound in their ears, like a series of thunderclaps. Tang Zheng's body was riddled with holes as if he was being cut by 1,000 knives. Cracks appeared on his body as if he was about to be torn apart. The golden light flickered, as if a golden kasaya was draped over Tang Zheng, resisting this terrifying energy with great difficulty. At the last moment, a huge black hole appeared in Tang Zheng's palm. Like a bottomless pit, it rapidly devoured this terrifying energy. At the same time, in the heaven realm, vast amounts of energy descended from the sky, nourishing the tree of life and thousands of living beings. You made a move. Tang Zheng's head twitched as he guessed what had happened. Yuan Ying's doppelganger said jokingly, if I don't make a move, won't I die at the hands of the other party? Tang Zheng blushed with shame and said, I'm still holding on. What's the use of holding on? The key is to deal with this energy. Didn't the heaven realm solve this problem? Yuan Ying's doppelganger said. Tang Zheng was shocked. He had to admit that Yuan Ying's words made sense. The huge black hole protected Tang Zheng, and the energy was quickly sucked into the black hole, greatly alleviating the crisis of the four symbols. The cracking sounds in the four symbols' body disappeared, and the cracks on his body gradually healed. However, the dazzling light still did not dissipate. Other than the three people involved, no one else could see what was happening. Hao Tianwang saw it. Immediately, his mind was shaken, and he shouted, "What are you doing?" Tang Zheng sneered and did not say anything. He and Yuanying worked together, and immediately, the black hole became bigger and bigger, swallowing everything. Boom! Mount Buzhou let out an earth-shattering explosion, turning into pieces of gravel. The tall and towering mountain instantly turned into nothingness. The gravel flew in all directions, but it did not escape the black hole. In an instant, it was completely absorbed by the black hole. This terrifying energy disappeared, and most of it was sucked into the black hole, alleviating the crisis of the four symbols. The light dissipated, and everyone impatiently widened their eyes, staring straight at the battlefield. Where was Mount Buzhou? Mount Buzhou had disappeared. The towering mountain peak disappeared completely in the blink of an eye. The heaven and earth mystic stone no longer existed. It had completely turned into energy and was completely absorbed by the four symbols and sky beyond heaven. Where's Mount Buzhou? Everyone was shocked and in disbelief. But then, their attention was attracted by a figure. Hao Tianwang stood in mid-air in a sorry state, looking at Tang Zheng and the four symbols with a pale face, as if he could not believe all of this. He had lost just like that. Mount Buzhou was also gone, and he had nothing to rely on. How did the other party do it? He only saw a huge black hole suddenly appear, and then everything was over. Tang Zheng and the four symbols stared at Hao Tianwang with shining eyes, saying, "Hao Tianwang, now that things have reached this point, you're already at the end of your rope. What other tricks do you have?" Hao Tianwang said unwillingly, "How did you do it?" Tang Zheng sneered, saying, "Have you heard of the sky-swallowing technique? It can even swallow the heavens, so this bit of heaven and earth mystic stone's energy is not worth mentioning." Sky-swallowing technique. Hao Tianwang muttered these three words. It was not that he had never seen the sky-swallowing technique, but he did not expect it to be so powerful. "I already know who your backer is, but let me tell you, he may not be able to save you." Tang Zheng hit the nail on the head. Hao Tianwang's pupils shrank. "If you don't believe me, you can call the heavenly Tao out. He's even more of a coward than you are. He hasn't shown himself all this time and will only stir up trouble behind your back. First it was Yan Qingyi, and now it's you. I don't know who he will choose next, but I know that you will definitely be abandoned by him." Tang Zheng vowed solemnly. Every word was like a sharp knife, ruthlessly stabbing into Hao Tianwang's heart, dripping with blood. Hao Tianwang's expression suddenly changed, and he screamed in panic, "No, I won't be abandoned. He will definitely come to save me." Actually, Hao Tianwang also knew a little about the heavenly Tao, but he had no choice but to place his last bit of hope on the heavenly Tao. If the heavenly Tao did not save him, then his situation would not be good at all. With powerful enemies lying in wait, the possibility of him escaping was too low. Tang Zheng said jokingly, "Then you call the heavenly Tao out, I want to see him." Tang Zheng was not in a hurry to attack, but provoked Hao Tianwang. He did have the intention of luring the snake out of its hole. The heavenly Tao was too illusory. If he could use this opportunity to lure the heavenly Tao out, then it would be a good opportunity. He wanted to see what the heavenly Tao was up to. Unfortunately, after waiting for a while, there was still no news of the heavenly Tao, and there was no sign of it appearing. Hao Tianwang's face was full of despair. "Accept your fate, Hao Tianwang. You don't have Buzhou Mountain to rely on, what hope do you have?" As soon as Tang Zheng's voice fell, he raised his sword and rushed forward. Chapter 1809. The hatred in Xiao Bai's heart soared to the heavens. This was the enmity of exterminating his clan, family, and country. It had been fermenting for countless years. A ray of bloody light shot out from the bloodthirsty scepter, transforming into strands of bloody threads that twisted into vines. Boom! The vines tore through the sky as if they were attacking. In the blink of an eye, they arrived in front of Hao Tianwang. Sword, come! Hao Tianwang reached out with his large hand, and an ice sword extended from his palm. In an instant, the ice sword had transformed into a giant sword and slashed down from the sky. Boom! Fragments of ice and bloody light shot out in all directions, creating a shockwave that rippled out in all directions, forming a huge circle. Xiao Bai's face was flushed red. He had clearly been shaken, but he didn't retreat. He gripped the bloodthirsty scepter, his face as hard as iron. He gritted his teeth and said, "I'll fight you to the death." Xiao Bai's entire body was covered in raging flames. The flames wandered to the bloodthirsty scepter. Immediately, the flames were filled with a dazzling bloody light, flickering with a demonic aura. Xiao Bai's figure gradually became blurry. Before long, his figure had disappeared into the flames, and the bloodthirsty scepter's light became more and more dazzling. Boom! As the light soared into the sky, the bloodthirsty scepter suddenly grew in size and power. Hao Tianwang seemed insignificant under the bloodthirsty scepter. Hao Tianwang raised his head and looked around. His eyes were like torches as he stared straight at the bloodthirsty scepter. He said in a deep voice, "Man weapon as one. Hao Tianwang, you exterminated my royal family. Today, I will make you pay with your blood." Xiao Bai's voice resounded from within the bloodthirsty scepter, rumbling like thunder. "You want revenge with your little cultivation? I'll send you to meet your ancestors." Hao Tianwang wasn't afraid at all. On the contrary, he was full of disdain. Tang Zheng sneered and flew behind Hao Tianwang, forming a pincer attack with Xiao Bai. He said, "Hao Tianwang, if I were to join forces, would you still be so confident?" "Ha ha ha, come, all of you, I'm going to kill you all." Hao Tianwang's face was filled with madness. However, in everyone's eyes, this was just his last bit of madness. Xiao Bai did not reject Tang Zheng's help because he knew that he was no match for Hao Tianwang. He could only succeed with the help of Tang Zheng. "Hao Tianwang, bring out all the strength you've got." Tang Zheng roared and launched an attack at the same time as Xiao Bai. Whoosh! The two of them streaked across the sky, one in front and one behind. They were one with the weapon. Tang Zheng and Xiao Bai were nowhere to be seen. Only the hidden mystic sword and the bloodthirsty scepter remained. Who doesn't know how to become one with the weapon? Hao Tianwang became one with the ice, and the world suddenly lit up. The ice sword flew up and met the bloodthirsty scepter. Hao Tianwang's hatred for Xiao Bai burned. He wanted to defeat him as quickly as possible. As for Tang Zheng, Hao Tianwang knew that he did not have the confidence to defeat him in one blow, so he left him behind. "Humph, you're ignoring me. Aren't you courting death?" Tang Zheng sneered. The hidden mystic sword sped up. The moment the ice sword hit the bloodthirsty scepter, the hidden mystic sword also hit the ice sword. Bang! The hilt of the ice sword exploded, turning into pieces of ice. The bloodthirsty scepter broke in the middle and split in two. Strands of blood shot out from the scepter and wrapped around the ice sword like a mummy. Roar! Hao Tianwang roared, "You're courting death." A sharp sword light shot out from the ice sword and cut the blood strands. Bang, bang, bang. The blood strands kept breaking, but new blood strands kept coming out and wrapped around the ice sword tightly. "I will die with you." Little White shouted without any regard for its own safety. The ice sword kept on struggling, trying to get rid of the blood strands. However, Xiao Bai was determined to die. He did not want to let Hao Tianwang escape. Hao Tianwang was really anxious, because Tang Zheng's attack was coming again. The hidden mystic sword's aura and light made his heart tremble. He did not know what to do anymore. "Break!" Tang Zheng roared. Along with the hidden mystic sword's high-pitched sword sound, it was terrifying. Dang! A crisp breaking sound was heard. The ice sword was split in two. A stream of blood seeped out from the broken ice sword. The ice sword also turned dark red. When the blood strands came in contact with the blood, they seemed to go crazy and excitedly soared. "Ah, what are you doing?" Hao Tianwang screamed. The broken sword trembled violently, and a blurred figure gradually appeared. It was Hao Tianwang. He struggled in midair. The blood strands wrapped around his body and continuously sucked blood from his wounds. His eyes became panicked, and there was an intense pain in the depths of his eyes. "Hao Tianwang, aren't you very powerful? What can you do now?" Xiao Bai's voice sounded. "I'm not willing to accept this." Hao Tianwang screamed. His voice was trembling. He had already realized the power of the bloodthirsty scepter. It was like a cat that smelled blood. Once the bloodthirsty scepter tasted blood, he would be like a leech that would not leave and would definitely suck his blood dry. Tang Zheng had also guessed this point. He angrily helped, "Hao Tianwang, don't struggle. You can't escape. Xiao Bai, increase the power of your attacks. Let him pay with his blood." Xiao Bai said excitedly, "Yes, master." Although he was excited, there was an unconcealable fatigue and weakness in his voice. However, the conviction in his heart was firm and he had no intention of backing down. Xiao Bai's will was firm, but Hao Tianwang's determination to resist wasn't weak either. At this critical juncture, he finally gathered his strength and launched another round of attacks. Bang! 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 The blood strands finally couldn't hold on any longer and broke apart. Xiao Bai's figure appeared once again. His body was drenched in blood as if he had been fished out of a pool of blood. "Your Majesty!" The old ancestors cried out miserably when they saw this. They lost their heads out of fear and were filled with worry and concern. Little White waved its large hand, stopping them from approaching, and said, "Stand down." The old ancestors looked at each other in dismay. In the end, they had no choice but to withdraw. However, they all locked onto Hao Tianwang. As long as Xiao Bai gave the order, they would definitely attack together. They would risk their lives and sacrifice themselves for justice. Tang Zheng didn't let go of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Hao Tianwang repelled Xiao Bai. However, this was also when Hao Tianwang was at his weakest. The hidden profound sword pierced straight into Hao Tianwang's chest. The hidden profound sword pierced through his chest and blood flowed out. "Ah!" Hao Tianwang looked up to the sky and roared. He was filled with pain. He froze in midair, as if he was frozen. He didn't move at all. Pooh! The hidden profound sword was pulled out from Hao Tianwang's body. Tang Zheng also appeared. He held the hidden profound sword and stood behind Hao Tianwang. Hao Tianwang turned his head with difficulty and glared at Tang Zheng. He muttered to himself, "Why did I fail? I have the eternal night descent. How can I fail?" He couldn't figure it out. Tang Zheng said righteously, "You chose the darkness. We represent the light. The light will eventually illuminate the darkness." Tang Zheng shouted at Xiao Bai, "I'll leave him to you. Avenge the royal family and the sky beyond sky." "Yes, master." Xiao Bai raised both his hands. There was no bloodthirsty scepter. Instead, bloodlines extended from his palms. The bloodthirsty scepter had completely merged with his body. Pu. Hao Tianwang couldn't resist at all. He watched as the bloodlines penetrated his body. His blood was like a raging river. It was completely absorbed by the bloodlines. His body was drying up at a speed visible to the naked eye.